Chapter 46. All Heaven's Shop. Just as Chu Bei was enjoying the dinner prepared by the little doctor and Qing Lin, Xiao Yan quickly ran in. "Boss Chu, Nailin Yanran brought her father here to cause trouble." Xiao Yan went straight to Chu Bei's side and pulled out a chair to sit down. With a pleading look on his face, he said, "Please come with me and take a look." "Nailin Su is here?" Chu Bei put down his chopsticks. "He's already in the mansion." Xiao Yan was clearly anxious. "If you don't go now, I'm afraid something bad will happen to my Xiao family." At this time, Chu Bei seemed to have noticed something and pointed to the ring that Xiao Yan had put back on his middle finger. "He's awake?" Xiao Yan was stunned and then pretended to be at a loss. "Boss Chu, what are you talking about? Who is he?" Chu Bei smiled knowingly, a playful look on his face. "You're still too inexperienced to play dumb in front of me. Let him come out. Your Excellency's perception is really sharp." Without waiting for Xiao Yan to open his mouth, an old voice drifted across the room. Then, a transparent old man's figure appeared. The little fairy doctor and Qing Lin were obviously shocked when they saw the old figure that appeared abruptly like a ghost. Their mouths were wide open. "Do you still have hatred in your heart?" Chu Bei calmly looked at the old man. "What does your Excellency mean?" The old man frowned. "How does it feel to be betrayed by a disciple you've raised since childhood?" Chu Bei continued to ask. "You know me?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, the old man's expression suddenly changed, his aura rising and his face darkening. "Yao Qin, a disciple of the Yao clan, but because he failed a mission when he was young, he was expelled from the Yao clan by his elders who couldn't distinguish right from wrong. After that, he became the continent's #1 alchemist, an 8th grade high-grade profound pill alchemist grandmaster. Other than that, you also possess the bone-freezing fire, which is ranked 11th on the Heavenly Flame ranking. You are also the pavilion master of Xingyunge in the central region. You are also known as the Medicine Lord. However, you actually prefer others to call you Yao Lao." At this point, Chu Bei sighed faintly. "It's a pity that in the end, he was betrayed by his adopted disciple and died. Fortunately, his soul was strong and the bone-freezing fire was able to preserve his soul." From time to time, Chu Bei would pick up some delicacies with his chopsticks and throw them into his mouth. Every time he spoke, the transparent elder's body would tremble. "Enough! Who are you?" In the end, the transparent elder could not help but interrupt with a cold shout. His gaze was fixed on Chu Bei. Chu Bei smiled. "I'm just a merchant who can fulfill all your wishes and fantasies as long as you have money. Naturally, this includes letting you regain your physical body. Boss Chu, we'll talk about this later. You should follow me home first." Yao Qin was about to say something when Xiao Yan could not help but speak up first. "Forget it. Let's go watch the show first." Chu Bei smiled. He then wiped the greasy corner of his mouth and walked out of the house. Qing Lin hesitated for a moment. When she saw the little doctor following Chu Bei's footsteps, she hurriedly chased after them. When Chu Bei and the rest arrived at the Xiao residence, the entrance of the Xiao residence was already crowded with people who wanted to watch the show. If it were not for the guards with weapons stopping them, they would have already broken into the Xiao residence. "Look! Xiao Yan is there." "Eh? Why is Boss Chu here too?" "Boss Chu is a great person. He must be here to be the peacemaker." Yeah, if it were not for Boss Chu's antidote, our Wu-Tan city would have become an empty city. When the crowd in front of the Xiao residence saw Chu Bei arrive, they all moved aside with gratitude in their eyes. Sister Xian'er, they seemed to be very respectful to the boss. Qing Lin's face was filled with confusion. The boss is the benefactor of the entire Wu-Tan city. As for what he did, I'll tell you in detail when we get back. Little doctor pretended to be mysterious. "Where is that brat Xiao Yan? Tell him to come out." In the depths of the Xiao residence, Chu Bei had just passed through a bluestone path when he heard a furious roar. The person who roared was naturally Nailin Su. Gu Yi and Nailin Yanran were standing on either side of him. As for Xiao Zhan, first elder, second elder, and the rest of the Xiao family, They were facing Nailan Su with a serious expression. What? You're not convinced of your loss, so you invited the old one here? Xiao Yan cleared his throat and a mocking laugh floated in the air. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Nailan Yanran's body trembled and her face turned ugly. Xiao Zhan, is this the good son you taught? Nailan Su's gaze instantly shifted to Xiao Yan. His fists were clenched, and his veins were exposed. Brother Nailan, you should know the reason for the incident that day. What Yan did, I don't think there was anything wrong with it. Seeing that Chu Bei had also arrived with Xiao Yan, Xiao Zhan, first elder, and the rest of the Xiao family's faces obviously eased a lot, as if they had found a backer. What is the status of your Xiao family? What is the status of my Nailan family now? Nailan Su coldly looked at Xiao Zhan. You allowed this brat to do such a thing to Yan Ran. How will she put her face in the future? If this matter spreads to the capital in the future, won't my Nailan family be ridiculed? Uncle Nailan, when your precious daughter came to visit, did you think about my Xiao family's face? Xiao Yan's eyes met Nailan Su's. If I was still a waste that day, I'm afraid the ones being ridiculed now would be my Xiao family. It's meaningless to talk about this. Nailan Su coldly snorted. Since my daughter lost to you, then as her father, I naturally have to help her vent her anger. Speaking up to here, Nailan Su glanced at Xiao Zhan and continued. Of course, if you lose, you can also let your father fight for you. Cold in the forest voice fell, Nailan Su's right foot suddenly stomped on the ground and a tyrannical doqi suddenly came out of his body. Then, his body shot towards Xiao Yan like a cannonball. At the same time, his right hand formed a fist and the surface of his fist was wrapped in a layer of fierce doqi. The friction with the air produced bursts of ear-piercing sounds. Nailan Su's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan and fiercely punched down. However, facing a terrifying punch that was far above his own, Xiao Yan's expression didn't change and there wasn't the slightest trace of fear in his eyes. He just quickly took 2 steps back and hid behind the person beside him. Get lost. Looking at Chu Bei who was blocking in front of him, Nailan Su didn't slow down in the slightest. He only shouted and then waved his left hand and a tyrannical doqi gushed out. But what made him astonished was that under the wind from his palm, not only did the man blocking in front of Xiao Yan not move, but he also raised his left palm and met his right fist neither too fast nor too slow. Bang! The fist and the palm collided. A low muffled sound was heard. Nailan Su's forward figure suddenly stopped, and then as if he had received a shock, he took a few steps back and dragged a long mark on the ground. Chapter 47. 6-star Do Ling. After Nailan Su stabilized his body, he stared at Chu Bei with a serious face and blurted out Chu Bei's cultivation. Half a month ago, his cultivation had already broken through to 5-star Do Ling. Although he had originally intended to use that punch to deal with Xiao Yan and had held back some of his strength, after sensing the power in Chu Bei's palm, he immediately gathered all the strength in his body into his fist. But even so, he was still at a disadvantage in this collision. Do Ling? I'm afraid that you have some misunderstanding about Boss Chu's strength. Xiao Yan came out from behind Chu Bei and sneered at Nailan Su. It's you! At this time, Nailan Yanran and Guyi seemed to have recognized Chu Bei and exclaimed. You know him? Nailan Su turned his head and looked at Nailan Yanran and Guyi. Xiao Yan and Xiao Zhan also cast a puzzled look. In their memory, on the day that Nailan Yanran came to visit, Chu Bei did not directly interact with him. Father, that day when we just left the Xiao mansion, this person chased after us and threatened that as long as we had money, he could let me defeat Xiao Yan the next day and wash away this shame. Nailan Yanran looked at Chu Bei. But at that time, we thought that he was a liar and chased him away. Hearing Nailan Yanran's words, Xiao Yan's, Xiao Zhan's, and the others' gazes once again returned to Chu Bei. Their gazes carried some strangeness. It was as if they were saying, Boss Chu, you are not honest. At that time, I was just joking. Sensing Xiao Yan's gaze, Chu Bei coughed dryly, trying to resolve the awkwardness. Yo, it's quite lively here. Just as Chu Bei's awkward words fell, a clear and cold voice suddenly rang out. Then, a figure suddenly appeared on the roof not far away. It was a woman in a long green robe. Although the veil on her cheeks covered most of her appearance, just by looking at the corner of her lips, one could tell that her appearance was not bad. At this moment, the green-robed woman crossed her arms in front of her chest and stared at Chu Bei and his group as if she was watching a show. Do Huang! The pupils of Nailan Su, and the others shrunk abruptly when they saw the green-clothed lady with the almost solid Do Chi wings on her back and the terrifying Do Chi fluctuation that caused a ripple to form in the air. Xiao Zhan, the first elder, and the second elder looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. How can a small city like Wu-Tan have a Do Huang? Gu Ye's gaze locked onto the green-clothed lady. Even in the entire Kama Empire, the number of Do Huangs could be counted with one's fingers. Even for him, other than the sect leader, it was extremely rare for him to meet a Do Huang. But now, in the Shao Mansion, a Do Huang of unknown origin had suddenly appeared out of thin air. This kind of strong person needs to be reported to Master. Perhaps Shizun knows her origins. Nailan Yanran softly muttered, cautiously sizing up the green-clothed lady on the roof. I have come into contact with a similar aura as her. At this moment Yao Lao's voice sounded in Xiao Yan's ears. Hearing Yao Lao's words, Xiao Yan's heart trembled slightly. From Boss Chu's words, Yao Lao was once quite famous on the continent and was not someone from the Kama Empire. In other words, the green-clothed lady on the roof came from a superpower outside of the Kama Empire. Is she just passing by? Xiao Yan looked at the green-clothed lady, his face filled with vigilance. Don't worry, isn't Boss Chu here? Yao Lao's voice sounded again. May I know why Senior Do Huang has appeared in our Shao Mansion? Xiao Zhan cupped his hands towards the green-clothed lady, his face filled with respect. I just happened to pass by and heard some commotion here, so I came to take a look. The green-clothed lady waved her hand. Just as she finished speaking with a smile, she seemed to have discovered something and her gaze instantly locked onto Qing Lin. At first, she was slightly stunned, but then her face filled with joy and excitement. The sudden excitement on his face was as if he had found a treasure. On the other hand, Qing Lin subconsciously took 2 steps back when she met the green-clothed lady's passionate gaze, her face filled with fear. On the roof, the green-clothed lady's hands suddenly moved, quickly forming a seal. Boom! With a loud sound, the ground around Chu Bei, Xiao Yan, and the little doctor suddenly burst open. In the next moment, countless wide green tree trunks emerged from the ground and intertwined with each other at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, they formed a wooden prison, tightly sealing Chu Bei and the other 2 within. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present, including Nailan Su and Xiao Zhan, to be stunned. They couldn't understand why this mysterious Do Huang would suddenly attack them. Xiao! Before everyone could recover, the green-clothed lady rushed out, her figure flashing across the roof. When he reappeared, he was already on the ground. He stretched out his arms and pulled Qing Lin, who was outside the wooden prison, into his arms. Xiao! The sound of breaking air sounded again. Under everyone's gaze, the green-clothed lady brought Qing Lin back to the roof. It really is the triple jade-green snake flower pupils. Looking at the 3 Xiaohei dots around Qing Lin's pupils, the green-clothed lady nodded with satisfaction and softly muttered, You, let go of me. Qing Lin struggled with all her might. Fear surfaced on her small face, like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Little one, don't be nervous. I can't bear to hurt you. The green-clothed lady extended her hand and gently stroked Qing Lin's small face. Let go of Qing Lin. The little doctor clenched her fist and stared intently at the green-clothed lady. A black fog faintly appeared on the surface of her body. Your name is Qing Lin? Sounds good. The green-clothed lady glanced at the little doctor before her gaze returned to Qing Lin. Boss, save me. Qing Lin gently bit her lips and looked at Chu Bei in the wooden prison with a pleading gaze. Little one, meeting me is your fortune. I will bring you to a place that is truly suitable for you. Speaking until this point, the green-clothed lady looked at Chu Bei and said, "You will only waste your talent if you follow him. Moreover, he is only a 6-star Do Ling. Forget about him. Even if your Empire's Do Huang were to come, he would not be able to snatch you from my hands." "Boss!" Hearing the green-clothed lady's words, Qing Lin softly called out again. However, she seemed to be worried about something and swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. "Qing Lin, you are really in high demand." A voice that carried a smile was spat out from Chu Bei's mouth. Unknowingly, a long and thin sword-like blade had appeared in Chu Bei's hand. The handle of the blade was engraved with a strange spiral pattern. At the place where the blade and the handle joined, there were 2 overlapping cherry blossom patterns. Buzz! The blade trembled slightly. Numerous cherry blossom petals scattered from the blade and danced in all directions. The cherry blossom petals looked ordinary and unremarkable. However, the moment it touched the wooden prison, it instantly turned into a sharp blade and shattered the sturdy wooden prison. Chapter 48. He actually broke the seal of a Do Huang. How is this possible? Looking at the wooden prison that was shattered by the cherry blossoms, Nayland Su's pupils shrank and his face was filled with shock. In terms of cultivation, he was also a Do Ling and was only 1 star lower than the other party. However, he did not have the confidence to break through the seal of a Do Huang like the other party. "Father, what's with the thin blade in his hand? There is no Do Qi fluctuation." Nayland Yanran felt that something was wrong as her beautiful eyes stared at the blade in Chu Bei's hand. Nayland Su did not reply. He only frowned as he did not understand what was going on. Xiao Zhan, Xiao Yan, first elder, second elder, and the rest of the Xiao family were not too shocked. It seemed that in their eyes, everything was reasonable. "You have overturned my understanding of Do Ling. Interesting." On the roof, the green-clothed lady looked at Chu Bei with surprise. Clearly, she did not expect the latter to be able to shatter her wooden prison. Not to mention a Do Ling, even a Do Huang would need to continuously attack for a few hours to break her wooden prison. Unexpectedly, the former was destroyed in an instant. As her voice fell, the green-clothed lady waved her hand and a sharp wooden stake that was covered by a majestic Do Qi suddenly rose and shot towards Chu Bei. However, before the wooden stake could reach Chu Bei, it was hit by a cherry blossom. Qi! In an instant, the sharp wooden stake was shattered into sawdust and fell from the sky. Seeing this scene, the green-clothed lady frowned. Other than shock, there was also a trace of seriousness in her eyes. After a long while, the green-clothed lady let out a low cry and a surge of blue Do Qi that was filled with coldness violently surged out from her body. Suddenly, the temperature of the entire space suddenly dropped. At the same time, on the roof, cracks quickly spread from the tip of the green-clothed lady's feet and finally spread all the way to the ground. Several houses that were connected to each other were on the verge of collapse. Sensing the power released by the green-clothed lady, whether it was Nayland Su, Gu Yi, Xiao Zhan, or the first elder, all of their faces became incomparably serious. They knew that the green-clothed lady in front of them who had stepped into the Do Huang realm was serious. When the green-clothed lady's rising aura stabilized, her hands spread out and 10 emerald green thorns energy whips shot out from her fingers. In the next moment, these energy whips spread out and shot towards Chu Bei from different directions, completely covering the space that he could dodge. Chu Bei glanced indifferently at the energy whips around him. His face was still calm, but his right hand that was holding the hilt of his saber trembled slightly. Suddenly, with a clear sound, a white halo with the blade as the center rapidly expanded the blade. Chi! The white halo expanded the white light green-clothed lady in a blink of an eye, the green-clothed ladies. A sharp, ear-piercing sound rang out as the 10 energy whips exploded at the same time, each bringing with it a terrifying energy storm. At the same time, the green-clothed ladies. After the energy whips were defeated, the white halo suddenly condensed into a white light pillar with a diameter of 0.5 meter and shot towards the green-clothed lady. The eyes of the green-clothed woman shrunk abruptly as she watched the white-colored light pillar that did not have any doji ripple but caused one's heart to palpitate for no reason. Without any hesitation, her hands quickly formed a complicated seal. Bang! The white light pillar bombarded the green-clothed lady's body. In the loud sound, there was a glaring light. However, under everyone's gaze, the thing that exploded with a bang was not the green-clothed lady but a piece of rotten wood. Poochie! When the green-clothed lady appeared in front of everyone again, her face was already pale and there was still a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Clearly, although she had used some kind of secret technique to dodge the white light pillar, she had also used up all of her energy to use this secret technique. He actually injured a Do Huang! How is this possible? Gu Yi and Nailan Su were stunned. When they came back to their senses, they looked at Chu Bei in disbelief. The green-clothed lady wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. When she looked at the blade in Chu Bei's hand again, there was a hint of fear in her eyes. Now, do you still think you can take Qinglin away? Chu Bei looked at the green-clothed lady expressionlessly, his voice indifferent. The green-clothed lady's face was extremely ugly. After looking at Qinglin, who was still on the roof, her slender fingers went into the green veil and into her mouth. Following that, a slightly sharp whistle, carrying a strange sound wave, spread out. Rumble! Not long after the whistle sounded, there was a roar in the distant sky. Then, an incomparably huge black shadow appeared in front of everyone's eyes and quickly approached the Shao mansion. Look at the sky! What is that? So scary! It seems to be flying towards us. Damn it! What is it doing? In front of the Shao mansion, the onlookers on the street were attracted by the huge movement in the sky. When they raised their heads and saw the huge black shadow getting closer and closer, a trace of fear immediately surged into their hearts. Looking from afar, it was a huge, snake-shaped magical beast. Its flying speed was so fast that it made people feel shocked. The huge tail twisted and swayed, as if it was teleporting. In a few breaths, it had already arrived in the sky above the Shao mansion. At this time, the full appearance of the huge beast was completely taken into the eyes of the pedestrians on the street, as well as Xiao Zhan, Nailan Su, and the others. They could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The magical beast's body was completely black, and there were lines of colorful patterns on the surface of its body. It looked quite strange. On the two sides of its body, there were 8 black wings with a tinge of purple. On its head, there was a black spiral-shaped horn that flickered with a faint purple light. The faint colorful pattern on the head vaguely outlined the appearance of a crown. If there was a strange place, it was none other than the triangular pupils that carried a kind of cunning that was like a human's. 8-winged black serpent emperor! Nailan Su seemed to have recognized the huge snake, and his face suddenly changed as he cried out involuntarily. Gu Ye's face also changed. His gaze was fixed on the huge snake, and his brows were tightly knitted. The 8-winged black serpent emperor was a gifted magical beast. From rank 3 onwards, it would gain an extra pair of wings for every rank it rose. When it reached 8 wings, it would be a rank 6 magical beast. Its strength could be compared to or even surpass a human Do Huang. Boss Chu, this big guy seems to be that woman's companion. Looking at the huge black serpent, Xiao Yan subconsciously blurted out. He did not think that the 8-winged black serpent emperor was the green-clothed woman's mount. This was because at this rank, the 8-winged black serpent emperor already possessed intelligence that was not inferior to a human. With the latter's pride, it was impossible for it to submit to a human of the same rank as it. After the 8-winged black serpent emperor stopped beside the green-clothed woman, its huge snake tail suddenly swung, and the gradually darkening clouds were instantly torn into pieces by its tyrannical aura. In terms of aura, it was above the green-clothed woman. Chapter 49. Lu Man, I didn't expect you to suffer such a heavy injury in such a small city. If this were to spread back, I'm afraid they would laugh to death. The 8-winged black serpent emperor's huge triangular pupils stared at the pale green-clothed woman. Its huge mouth opened and closed as it let out a deafening laughter. By ya, you bastard! You still don't forget to laugh at me at this time. Don't tell me you didn't notice that the girl over there is different from normal humans? Hearing the eight-winged black serpent emperor's mocking words, the green-clothed woman's face sank. At the same time, she stretched out her hand and pointed at Qing Lin. Hearing that, the eight-winged black serpent emperor's triangular pupils moved. When it saw Qing Lin's eyes, its voice was like thunder. Triple J green snake flower pupils! That's right! She is our biggest gain on this trip, the green-clothed woman said indifferently. Then who was it that heavily injured you? The eight-winged black serpent emperor's huge triangular pupils coldly swept across Nalin Su, Xiao Zhan, and the others below. The green-clothed woman didn't say much. She only pointed at Chu Bei. A mere Do Ling. How could he injure you? Sensing Chu Bei's dochi fluctuation, the eight-winged black serpent emperor's eyes had some confusion. This human is very strange. Especially that blade. It can't be underestimated, the green-clothed woman said in a deep voice. We have caused enough commotion. We can't drag this on any longer. Let me experience this human's methods. The eight-winged black serpent emperor coldly stared at Chu Bei. Its 8 wings flapped at the same time and an even more terrifying power burst forth. Accompanied by the cold voice, the 8-winged black serpent emperor suddenly opened its huge mouth. Black flames burst out from its huge mouth and finally condensed into an incomparably huge black fireball at the side of its mouth. At the place where the fireball was formed, tiny black cracks faintly appeared in the void. Chi-chi-chi, amidst the burning sound, the temperature in the air rapidly rose, causing people to become restless. Other than the blazing black fireball, densely packed small black energy snakes appeared around the 8-winged black serpent emperor's huge body. They continuously flicked their tongues. Lu Man, you take this girl back first. After I deal with this human, I still have to make a trip to the Tager Desert and find that Medusa to spar. The 8-winged black serpent emperor didn't seem to care about Chu Bei at all. After it finished speaking to the green-clothed woman, it suddenly spat out its huge mouth. Immediately, the huge black fireball shot in Chu Bei's direction. Wherever it passed, space became slightly distorted. Almost at the same time, the densely packed small black energy snakes also swooped down, covering the sky like a huge net. Scatter, Senbin Zakura. However, just as the woman in green reappeared beside Qing Lin and was about to take her away, an extremely calm voice drifted into her ears. Focusing his gaze, Chu Bei released his right hand that was holding the hilt, and the thin saber was in a free-falling position with the blade facing downwards. The strange thing was that when the saber stabbed into the ground, it disappeared. However, just as everyone was looking for the saber, the ground that was paved with blue stone bricks suddenly lit up with pink light. In the light, 12 identical sabers drilled out from the ground, symmetrically distributed on both sides. Kacha! It was accompanied by a neat and clear sound. The 12 thin sabers shattered into countless dense blades at the same time. Under the contrast of the pink light, these blades were like dancing petals, gorgeous and dazzling. Bang, bang, bang! In an instant, the dancing blades exploded. Wherever they passed, the small black energy snakes that collided with them were instantly cut into nothingness. In the continuous sound of explosions, the dancing blades intertwined in an orderly manner. After destroying the huge black fireball, they were divided into 2 groups. Half of the blades turned into a wall of light that reflected cold light, blocking the green-clothed woman's path. The other half of the blades, under the frightened gaze of the 8-winged black serpent emperor, shot out in all directions. In the mournful scream, the hard scales on the surface of the 8-winged black serpent emperor's body shattered at the same time. Dark red blood seeped out from his dark body. Shocking and terrifying scars spread all over his huge body. There were even some places where the eerie white bones could be seen. His 8 wings had also been sliced into pieces by the sharp blades, and blood flowed out from them. White Fang. Seeing that her companion was fatally injured, the green-clothed woman did not have any other thoughts. She immediately flew back to the side of the 8-winged black serpent emperor and used all her strength to stop the bleeding. Lu Man, this time we kicked an iron plate. The eight-winged black serpent emperor endured the pain. When he looked at Chu Bei again, the indifference in his huge triangular eyes had already disappeared. What replaced it was a wave of complete and utter fear and dread. White Fang, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you here. It's all my fault. Lu Man's face became increasingly pale. His eyes were filled with deep regret. Sir, all of this is my fault. I beg you to spare White Fang's life. Lu Man's gaze returned to Chu Bei's body. With a plop, he directly knelt down in the air. Chu Bei indifferently glanced at Lu Man. He did not give any response. He only waved his right hand. The petal-like blades wrapped around Qing Lin. After safely sending her to Chu Bei's side, they once again condensed into the thin blade from before and returned to Chu Bei's hand. What were those just now? They could actually heavily injure such a terrifying magical beast. They look like flower petals. But how can flower petals have such terrifying killing power? Who is in the Shao mansion? Could it be that Nayland Su heavily injured that magical beast? Impossible! This magical beast is at least rank 5. According to what I know, Nayland Su is only a Do Ling. How could he injure it? Then who could it be? The Shao mansion is actually hiding someone above the Do Wang realm. Do you still remember the Jiaolai mansion that was destroyed in one night? It's extremely terrifying to think about it. Outside the Shao mansion, more and more people were passing by. Among them, there was no lack of experts from other powers and families in Wutan City. When they saw the miserable appearance of the eight-winged black serpent emperor, only shock was left on their faces. Inside the mansion, there was a deathly silence. Xiao Zhan, the first elder, the second elder, and the other members of the Shao family looked at each other. When they once again looked at Chu Bei, they were even more respectful. Gu Yi swallowed his saliva. His entire person seemed to have been struck by lightning. His face was at a loss. It was as if he was struck by lightning. He was like a clay statue. Nayland Yanren was also flabbergasted. Her brain seemed to have lost the ability to think. She stood there like a piece of wood without moving. Her two eyes stared blankly at Chu Bei, who was holding the blade. As for Nayland Su, at this moment, his entire body was as tense as a rock. His heart was so heavy that it was as if it was filled with cold lead. He really did not dare to think that before this green-clothed woman came, he actually made a move against this mysterious person. Unconsciously, Nayland Su shivered. His heart still had lingering fear. This scene was far beyond his expectations. It was too shocking. Chapter 50. You are from the Sky Serpent Mansion, right? Chu Bei raised his eyes and looked calmly at the eight-winged black serpent emperor and the green-clothed lady in the air. Hearing this, the green-clothed lady trembled slightly and a hint of astonishment flashed through her eyes. Senior, we are indeed from the Sky Serpent Mansion. It was because of this that we had the intention to take the triple jade green snake flower pupils away by force. The green-clothed lady hurriedly said. We have no ill intentions towards her. Chu Bei waved his right hand and the thin saber in his hand turned into a stream of light and disappeared. If you had ill intentions towards her, do you think you would still have the chance to speak now? Hearing Chu Bei's words, the green-clothed lady and the eight-winged black serpent emperor looked at each other. From the other party's previous methods, they knew that they had offended someone they should not have offended this time. They also knew that if the other party did not hold back earlier, they would have already been turned into ashes. Scram! Chu Bei waved his hand casually. I will train this triple jade green snake flower pupils myself. There is no need for you to help. At this point, Chu Bei's tone suddenly turned cold. If you dare to have any ideas about Qing Lin again, the entire Sky Serpent Mansion will be buried with her. The green-clothed lady and the eight-winged black serpent emperor were stunned one after another. After recovering from their shock, they hurriedly lowered their heads and said, Thank you for sparing our lives, Senior. Bye, let's go. The green-clothed lady healed the eight-winged black serpent emperor's injuries and quickly left. Under the gazes of everyone in the mansion, the two figures disappeared into the horizon. Do you still want to continue staying here? Nayland Su, Guyi, and the others raised their eyes and looked in the direction where the green-clothed lady disappeared. However, at this moment, a calm voice sounded in their ears. Meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Nayland Su's expression suddenly froze and his body could not help but shiver. Senior, we have disturbed you. We will leave now. Nayland Su did not think at all as he bowed to Chu Bei and subconsciously blurted out. As soon as he finished speaking, he gave Guyi and Nayland Yanran a look. Then, he turned around and walked quickly towards the Shao residence's main gate. Nayland Yanran looked at Xiao Yan unwillingly, but when her gaze swept over Chu Bei, fear emerged in her eyes. Immediately, he quickened his pace and caught up to Nayland Su. Look! Nayland Su and Nayland Yanran have also come out. From the looks of it, this Shao family trip didn't go well. Nonsense! Even the terrifying magical beast from before was heavily injured by the hidden expert of the Shao family, not to mention Nayland Su, who is a Do Ling. If they want to avenge Nayland Yanran, I'm afraid only the sect leader of the Yunlan sect can do it himself. I really want to see the expert that the Shao family is hiding. Outside the Shao residence, a group of people first looked in the direction of the eight-winged black serpent emperor, but their gazes quickly fell on Nayland Su and his group who walked out of the Shao residence, and they started to discuss spiritedly. Boss Chu, what is the saber you used just now? Can you let me have a look? Inside the residence, Xiao Yan looked at Chu Bei with a flattering face. Chu Bei took a step forward and patted Xiao Yan's shoulder. He said meaningfully, Young man, work hard to earn money. When you have enough money, don't talk about looking, you can even hug him to sleep. Xiao Yan raised his head and sighed. He once again realized the importance of money. Of course, he did not ask about the price of the saber, because it was meaningless. Even if the Shao family had all their wealth, they would still not be able to afford it. It's dark, let's go back. Chu Bei put his hands on the shoulders of the little doctor and Qing Lin respectively, and took the lead to walk away. The saber he used before was called Senbenzakura Sakura, which came from the Death Plane. It was the Zanpakuto of the 6th Division captain of the 13 Imperial Guard squadrons. Because it could only be used in the Shurkai, and there was a half-hour usage limit, it was classified as a level 8 commodity. This also consumed the level 8 commodity that was rewarded by the system because of the successful transaction of the Green Lotus Core Fire. Boss Chu, did you see the expert that the Shao family is hiding in the residence? Chu Bei and the other two had just left the Shao residence, and a group of people surrounded them. Facing these incomparably enthusiastic pedestrians, Chu Bei could only chat while pulling the two girls and quickly leave. The next day, Kama Holy City. As the capital of the Kama Empire, the Holy City was several times more lively than Wu-Tan City. There was an endless stream of people coming and going, and it was extremely noisy. The Imperial Palace was divided into an inner palace and an outer palace. The outer palace was surrounded by a dark red high wall and some male guards. Of course, there were also some relatively ordinary and simple houses. The main task of these guards was to prevent any suspicious people from approaching the palace. After passing through the outer palace and passing through a 5-meter-high golden high wall, one would reach the inner palace. The inner palace was filled with majestic and magnificent palaces, indicating its core position in the Imperial Palace. On the side of the golden high wall, teams of strictly trained guards were constantly patrolling back and forth. At this moment, in the center of the inner palace, a bright and cheerful dance song was being sung in a magnificent hall with golden walls. The Jianma Emperor and a group of imperial officials were leisurely admiring the enchanting dance of the dancers, nodding their heads in praise from time to time. But after a personal guard came forward and said a few words in the Jianma Emperor's ear, the latter waved away all the dancers. The hall suddenly quieted down. "Father, what's wrong?" A young girl around 14 or 15 years old could not help but take the lead to speak. Her face was filled with confusion. Beside the young girl sat a tall woman wearing a luxurious brocade gown. Her appearance was similar to the young girl, but there was an additional coldness and majesty. All the officials in the hall looked at the Jiama Emperor with confusion in their eyes. Not including today, the Primer clan will be holding a Tian-level auction in 2 days, the Jiama Emperor said faintly. What? Tian-level auction? Why is it so sudden? In the past, the Tian-level auction would be organized at least a month in advance. Hearing the Jiama Emperor's words, the officials immediately began to discuss. This is not the main point. The problem is that the location of the Tian-level auction is in Wutan City. The Jiama Emperor continued. Wutan City? That small border city near the Magic Beast mountain range? What is that old fellow Tingshan doing? No, I will go and ask him in a while. After knowing the location of the auction, the officials in the hall immediately frowned. Father, what else do you know? Early in the night, Emo Tienga's lips moved slightly as he asked. This auction will be the most important auction in the Primer auction house in the past 10 years. The Jiama Emperor narrowed his eyes and continued. It is said that the final treasure is related to the Dozone class. It is related to the Dozone class. The faces of the officials in the hall changed once again, revealing a stunned expression. In the entire Kama Empire, a 5-star Do Huang could enter the top 10. As for Do Huang, they were as rare as phoenix feathers, not to mention Dozone. Rumble! At this moment, an intense deafening roar was transmitted into the hall from a distance. The entire hall began to tremble. Chapter 51. This aura. The Jiama Emperor was the first to stand up from the dragon chair. After which, his body flashed and rushed out of the hall. The other officials in the hall exchanged glances with each other before leaving in a single file. Do Huang! And there are 2 of them! When they arrived outside the hall, all the officials immediately looked toward the northwest direction of the hall. They sensed 2 frightening auras that soared to the sky. All of their faces revealed shock. I'll go and take a look first. The Jiama Emperor glanced at all the officials. A beautiful pair of Do-Chi wings swiftly agglomerated on his back. After which, it transformed into a light figure that flew toward the location where the 2 auras had erupted. Almost at the same time, the figures of the 3 large clans of the Nalan Mansion, Primer Mansion, and Mu Mansion rose into the air. Seeing the back of the Jiama Emperor, the officials hesitated for a moment. After which, they displayed their abilities and headed toward the northwest direction. Rumble! In the sky above the gardens of the capital, white and yellow light clusters repeatedly intertwined and collided, carrying a frightening explosion sound. Including the Jiama Emperor, the Do Wangs who had arrived first gathered together. All of their faces were solemn as they watched the 2 light clusters on the battlefield. One could see that there was a partially visible figure in each of the 2 light clusters. Each time these 2 figures intertwined, an incomparably ferocious energy ripple would erupt. Under this energy ripple, even a Do Wang would have no choice but to agglomerate a Do-Chi armor to block it. That is Jia Lao. Mu Chen seemed to have recognized the identity of the figure in the yellow light cluster. Shocked words escaped his mouth. After which, he subconsciously looked at the Jiama Emperor. Sensing Mu Chen's gaze, the Jiama Emperor nodded. But who is the person who is fighting with Jia Lao? Nalan Jia stared at the figure in the white light cluster and frowned tightly. Old eyes, decades have passed, but your training has not improved at all. At this moment, an old laugh was emitted from the yellow light cluster. Old Jia, it is because I have met with a troublesome problem. You, on the other hand, have not broken through to the Dozone class after so many years. If this continues, the Jiama imperial family will not be so comfortable on the day you die. A laugh was emitted from the white light cluster. Hee hee, the old me still has a long life. How can I die so easily? Although the old voice from the yellow light cluster still carried a smile, it was not difficult to hear some heaviness from it. Ice old man? And this cold chi, could he be the Ice Emperor hyped on? He's still alive! Hearing the words of the old man in the yellow ball, the Jiama Emperor, Mu Qian and Nalan Jia spoke one after another. After guessing the identity of the figure in the white ball of light, The three of them immediately looked at Primer Tingshan with questioning eyes. How could Old Hai have fallen? He had only lived in seclusion for a few decades. Mitre Tingshan glanced at the three of them and said, But I only met Old Hai yesterday. As the battle intensified, more and more experts rushed to the garden. Their gazes were all focused on the two figures fighting in the air. After the older generation experts recognized the identities of Jixingshan and Hypedan, the news spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. In the end, all the spectators widened their eyes in shock. If you two old fellows continue fighting, the entire imperial capital will be alarmed. At this moment, another aged voice drifted in the air. Soon after, from the northeast, a purple figure flew over. In just a few breaths, the purple figure appeared on the battlefield. That's the president of the Empire's Alchemist Association. He actually came as well. Both inside and outside the garden, some of the experts who were watching the battle recognized the Dharma Mammoth and exclaimed. Hearing the voices, Jixingshan and Hypedan stopped fighting. The three old men formed a triangle. After looking at each other, they laughed out loud at the same time as if they were old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Ice old man, how did you break Medusa's snake seal? The Dharma Mammoth's face was filled with curiosity. Did you rely on that incomplete map? What? Snake seal? No wonder you disappeared all these years. A shocked expression appeared on Jixingshan's old face. He had heard of Medusa's snake seal. Once one was hit, there was almost no way to break it. Bullshit! Hypedan blurted out. If I really relied on that incomplete map, I would probably die of old age in the desert. Then how did you break the snake seal? The Dharma Mammoth frowned and asked. Jixingshan also had a curious expression. Hypedan glanced at the Jiama Emperor, Nalin Jie and the others not far away. His gaze returned to the Dharma Mammoth. I was lucky. I met a mysterious merchant. From him, I obtained a strange pattern and easily broke the snake's seal. Mysterious merchant? The Dharma Mammoth and Jixingshan looked at each other. The Jiama Emperor, Nalin Jie, Mu Qian and the others also looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. 2 days later, Primer will hold a heaven-level auction in Wutan City. Other than the treasures prepared by our auction house, there will also be the 6 treasures of the mysterious merchant that I mentioned. Hypedan circulated his Do Chi. His vigorous voice floated far away. At that time, you will naturally meet this mysterious merchant. Is this why you arranged the heaven-level auction in Wutan City? The Jiama Emperor, Mu Chun and Nalin Jie looked at Primer at the same time. That's right. Primer smiled and nodded in response. On the other side. Celestial shop. Boss, a guest is here. The little doctor gently pushed open Chu Bei's door. Chu Bei responded. When he came to the outer room and saw the guest that the little doctor mentioned, his face instantly had a playful expression. This so-called guest was the Snake Queen Medusa and one of the 8 leaders, Yume, whom he had dealt with not long ago. Seeing Chu Bei arrive, Qing Lin, who was being stared at by Medusa, quickly moved and hid behind Chu Bei. Boss Chu, we meet again. Medusa's gaze shifted to Chu Bei. Her expression was cold. Yume was the same. Her beautiful eyes even faintly contained hostility toward Chu Bei. Those who come are guests. Qing Lin, serve tea? Chu Bei smiled. No need. Medusa waved her hand. This queen came this time for the Eastern Emperor Taiset. After obtaining the Eastern Emperor Taiset's skill, Fallen God contract, she only cultivated it for a few hours and felt the extraordinary exquisiteness of it. It could even be said that this skill's profoundness was above the snake seal curse. It was also because of this that she couldn't wait to obtain the complete Eastern Emperor Taiset. You should know the rules. Then I won't say anything more. Whether you can obtain it today will depend on your luck. After saying this with a smile, Chu Bei waved his sleeve. With a buzzing sound, a golden disc appeared in front of Medusa. It emitted a glaring light. At the top of the disc, the words, Level 8 Wheel of Fortune, were engraved. Chapter 52. 2 million going once. Chubei pointed at the lucky wheel and looked calmly at Medusa. Medusa was expressionless, but Yume beside her could not help but twitch her mouth. Is this robbery? Yume could not help but shout. Miss Yume, don't you understand that you get what you pay for? Chubei ignored Yume's murderous gaze and smiled. Yume wanted to say something, but Medusa waved her hand and interrupted. Boss Chu, compared to money, I have more demon cores. I think I can use them. 1 rank 6 demon core for 1 spin, Chubei replied. Hearing this, Medusa waved her hand and 10 demon cores of different colors appeared. Every year, there were many powerful demon beasts that invaded the Naga tribe. For this reason, Medusa had accumulated many high-level demon cores. The system has gained 200,000 willpower. Supporting the host has gained 100,000 willpower. When the wheels swallowed the demon cores, the system's voice sounded. The needle turned. Ding! Amidst the crisp sounds, 10 exquisite square boxes were placed in front of Medusa one after another. Seeing this magical operation, Yume's eyes were filled with shock. Bang! The 10 boxes exploded at the same time. You are indeed a profiteer! Yume was first stunned when she saw the words "Thank you for your patronage" lined up in an orderly manner in front of Medusa. She glared fiercely at Chubei when she reacted to the situation. As for Medusa, she did not have much reaction. She waved her hand and another 10 rank 6 demon cores appeared. The system has gained 200,000 willpower. Supporting the host has gained 100,000 willpower. The needle turned. Ding! 10 exquisite boxes appeared. Bang! The exact same process, even the results were the same. It was still 10, thank you for your patronage. Your Majesty, this guy is lying to you. Don't believe him anymore. 20 Class 6 monster cores were soaked in water in a row. Yume was so angry that her body trembled. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't beat Chubei, she would have already attacked him. Medusa frowned. However, she didn't say anything. She took a deep breath and took out 10 more magic cores. It's a small business, and there's a daily sales limit. If you still can't transfer to the next group, you can only come back tomorrow. Chubei's words made Medusa's frown deepen. The system has gained 200,000 willpower points. The host has gained 100,000 willpower points. Bang! 10 square boxes exploded. Your Majesty, we got something this time. Yume's eyes were fixed on the crimson-red armor in the middle of the 9, thank you for your patronage. Medusa's cold expression softened as she felt the strange energy fluctuations coming from the armor. Boss Chu, introduce it to me. Medusa pointed at the crimson-red armor. Your luck is pretty good. Although you didn't get anything in the first 2 groups, this violent armor has made you earn back the magic cores you lost. Chubei touched the crimson-red armor and said, among the Class 8 square boxes, this item is considered one of the more precious ones. Among the Class 8 Lucky Roulette, most of them were Class 8 items, but there were also Class 7 and Class 6 items. This crimson-red armor was a Class 8 item. Violent armor? Just hearing the name of the armor, Medusa's beautiful eyes were filled with interest. Other than being able to defend against the attack of a 4-star dozone, it can also increase your attack power by 10% and your flying speed by 10%. Chubei said. It's that powerful? After hearing Chubei's words, Yume walked around the violet armor with a suspicious expression. You'll know once you wear it. Medusa stretched out her hand. When her fingertips touched the violet armor, the armor turned into a crimson light and attached itself to Medusa's body, forming a light muslin dress. In the next moment, Medusa's eyes shone brightly. Your Majesty, how is it? Yume immediately asked when she noticed the change in Medusa's expression. Medusa nodded. It's as he said. It's really that powerful. Yume's mouth was wide open and her face was filled with disbelief. She looked at Chubei with a different gaze. The next day, Medusa brought Yume over once again. After spending 80 million gold coins to reach the upper limit of Chubei's sales, Although they still didn't get the Dongwon set, they did get an offensive weapon from the League of Legends world. It was a Class 7 item, the Frost Hammer. Melee attacks can reduce the opponent's movement speed by 40%. Ranged attacks can reduce the opponent's movement speed by 20%. Medusa held the Frost Hammer and revealed a smile. Boss Chu, you really have a lot of good stuff here. Medusa looked at Chu Bei and put away the Frost Hammer. The meaning behind her words was hard to understand. What? You want to rob me? Chu Bei smiled. I'm not that untactful. Medusa quickly shook her head. After these two interactions, she realized that she couldn't see through the person in front of her. He was becoming more and more mysterious. Then what do you mean? Chu Bei took a sip of tea. Boss Chu, can't you take out all the treasures and let me choose the most suitable one? Just name your price. Medusa said what was on her mind. Ancestral business. The rules can't be changed. Chu Bei responded and added, but the day after tomorrow at the Primer auction house, I will be auctioning 6 items. You can see if there's anything you need. Auction? Medusa stared blankly for a moment, then replied, I'll definitely be there. Primer auction house. The moment all the staff received Yafei's instructions, they started to renovate the auction house like a raging fire. Not only did they connect all the big and small auction houses, but they also removed the outer wall, turning it into a huge open-air auction house. Looking at the seating arrangement, with the auction stage as the center, there were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. The circle closest to the auction stage was indirectly distributed with exquisite and luxurious compartments. As the news spread, Wutan City became more and more lively. It was as if it was on par with Holy City. At this moment, Wutan City's largest tavern was full of people. Primer Auction House's large-scale renovation, is there any big movement? Damn! Did you just climb out of a coffin? You're too uninformed. Hurry up and tell us, don't keep us in suspense. Primer Auction House will be holding a heaven-level auction the day after tomorrow. What? A heaven-level auction? Impossible! A heaven-level auction is Primer's highest standard auction. Why would it be held in our Wutan City? This is a fact that is already set in stone. It's said that Boss Chu is going to auction 6 mysterious treasures. Last time, the antidote water from the Xiao family, wasn't it provided by him? No wonder there are so many unfamiliar rich faces on the streets today. It seems like they must be high officials from other cities. I heard that this time, there are many big shots coming from the capital. Not only the 3 big families, even the royal family is coming. In the tavern, all the topics were about the auction that would be held the day after tomorrow. Chapter 53. Tavern, Northwest Corner. A family of 8 gathered around a round table. The most conspicuous one was a stooped, white-haired old man. Great-grandfather, you're already 108 years old. There must be something wrong with your memory. You must have mistaken him for someone else. A young man around 21 or 22 years old put down his chopsticks. Boss Chu is the benefactor of the entire Wutan City. Don't say such things again. It won't be good if outsiders hear it. I won't remember wrongly. It's him. He's still the same as when I was young. He hasn't changed at all. If you don't believe me, I'll go confront him. The stooped, white-haired old man's body trembled. Perhaps because of his age, his voice trembled as he spoke. Grandfather, 100 years have passed. Boss Chu's appearance hasn't changed at all. He must be a cultivation expert. Why would such a person steal your steamed buns? A middle-aged man asked. Why don't you believe me? The stooped, white-haired old man shook his head. His skinny face was full of grievance. If Chu Bei was here, he would be embarrassed to hear the old man's words. 100 years ago, when he transmigrated to Wutan City, he had no money and no job. Coincidentally, his stomach failed him. Turning a corner, he saw an 8 or 9-year-old child holding 2 steamed buns. After hesitating for 3 seconds, he had no choice but to snatch the steamed buns. At the same time, All Heaven's shop, 2nd floor. Chubei inexplicably sneezed. In 2 days, he had obtained a total of 700,000 willpower points from Medusa. In the Battle Spirit realm, DNDUI required 50,000 willpower points for a 1-star cultivation level. In the Battle King realm, DNDUI required 200,000 willpower points for a 1-star cultivation level. After spending 150,000 willpower to break through to Battle Spirit 9 stars, he spent another 400,000 willpower to raise his cultivation to Battle King 2 stars. When Chubei became a Battle King from Battle Spirit, the battle crystal in his body disappeared. The battle chi in his body no longer needed to go through the battle crystal to be mobilized. His entire body could gush out along his meridians at any time. Other than that, the biggest difference was that his battle chi turned into wings and soared into the sky. As for his remaining willpower, 205,000 points. Another day passed. Morning. Opening of the Celestial Mall auction. The system is selecting goods for the host. The system's voice sounded in Chubei's mind. Chubei woke up with a start and found that there were 6 exquisite wooden boxes on the system interface. 3 black boxes, 2 red boxes, and 1 purple box. "Boss, Miss Yafei is here." At this moment, Qinglin knocked on the door and walked in. Chubei nodded. As soon as he left the room, he saw Yafei, who was wearing a purple-red robe. "Boss Chu, the auction house is ready for you. How are things going on your end?" Yafei strode towards Chubei. As her waist swayed, her close-fitting robe outlined a touch of charm. "Let's go." Chubei sized up Yafei with a smile on his face. The most lively place in Wu-Tan City today was the Primer Auction House. The huge auction house was packed with people. There were tens of thousands of seats, and there were no empty seats. Even in the outermost 6th circle, the people who were seated there were all very wealthy. "If we didn't know Boss Chu, I'm afraid we wouldn't even have a seat." Xiao Zhan, who was in the northwest of the 3rd circle, sighed. Although the Xiao family was one of the 3 major families in Wu-Tan City, if placed in the entire Kama Empire, they were far from being ranked. Looking at the people sitting around, especially the 2 circles closest to the auction stage, they were all famous people in the Kama Empire. "Do you know who's in room number 4? A chubby man sitting in the 2nd row looked at the man in green beside him and asked. "Don't keep us in suspense." The man in green was curious. "People from the Mu family. And Mu Qin is personally leading them." The fatty raised his eyebrows. TSK, then do you know who's in the 3rd box?" A thin man interrupted. "Tell me." The fatty was also curious. "Marshal Lionheart Nayland Jie." The person who interrupted earlier said proudly. "What's there to be shocked about? It's said that even the old man in the palace came with His Majesty. He's in the 1st box. The lineup for this auction is really not small. I wonder what the final 6 mysterious treasures will be like. We'll find out soon." In the auction house, there was a clamor of discussion. "Look! Yafei is on stage. As expected of a famous woman in the imperial capital. She's really a seductress." In an instant, countless gazes were focused on a woman in a purple-red dress with a voluptuous and exquisite figure. "Everyone, I've kept you waiting." Yafei leisurely stepped onto the auction stage and bowed to the crowd. Her sweet voice was so charming that it made people's bones go numb. "Miss Yafei, since you know we can't wait, then let's get to the point." A middle-aged man below the stage shouted. "Okay." Yafei was very efficient. She didn't say anything else and directly took out a silver plate from her storage ring. On the plate was a simple and unadorned sheepskin scroll. "The first item of this auction is a high-grade mystic class technique, Blazing Sun technique." Yafei's lips opened and closed. After reading the auction item, she raised her voice and said, "The starting price is 200,000 gold coins. It's just a high-grade mystic class technique." "How boring." "That's right. If you want it, just buy it. If it's an earth-grade technique, maybe we'll fight for it." Perhaps because most of the people in the auction house were famous people in the Kama Empire, the auction of the high-grade mystic class technique didn't cause too much of a commotion. There were even many sighs. In the end, the Blazing Sun technique was won by Xiao Zhan for 700,000 gold coins. However, as the auction continued, the atmosphere in the auction house rose at a rapid pace. Especially in the later stages, there was no lack of bidders who stood up from their chairs and fought until their faces were red. She really has some skills. In box number 8, Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Yafei on the auction stage. His eyes were filled with praise. It had to be said that Yafei had achieved the pinnacle of using her appearance to stir up the atmosphere. Every frown and smile would cause the price below the stage to soar. Once someone raised the price, she would cast a charming smile at them. Those who were still pained to raise the price saw this smile, and immediately became spirited. Finally, after 4 hours of the auction, the last item prepared by the primer auction house was sold at a price of 15 million gold coins. Although the bidders below the stage were enthusiastic in these 4 hours of auction, the person in the box closest to the auction stage didn't make a sound. Everyone, although the auction items prepared by the primer auction house have been sold, this auction isn't over yet. When the last auction item was sold, Yafei adjusted her skirt and her charming voice floated from the auction stage. Chapter 54. It's finally starting! Hearing Yafei's words, the audience was stunned at first, then they became excited. Especially the officials and nobles in the inner circle, they rubbed their hands together, their faces full of anticipation. Although the primer auction house's auction had ended, they knew that this was the real start of the auction. It was also the battlefield of the big shots in the boxes. Everyone, I will leave the rest of the time to Boss Chu. Yafei looked at box number 8, her lips slightly parted, her words filled with a smile. Hearing this, the audience gradually quieted down, and everyone couldn't help but look in the same direction. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Bei unhurriedly stepped onto the auction stage, then waved his hand to greet everyone. Box number 3. It's him? He looks like he's only in his 20s. Naylan Jie's gaze was fixed on Chu Bei's face, his brows furrowed. Father, you can't be fooled by his appearance. Naylan Su respectfully looked at Naylan Jie. What Yanran and I saw before is definitely not false. Moreover, I also found out from the people in the city that he has already lived in Wutan City for 100 years. Grandfather, think about it, for 100 years his appearance hasn't changed. Only a Do Zone can do that. Naylan Yanran opened her mouth to speak. Don't worry, I won't test him. Naylan Jie seemed to have seen through Naylan Su and Naylan Yanran's worries, stroked his beard and said, Boss Chu, let's start. I can't wait any longer. Yes, I came all the way here just to see the 6 mysterious treasures that Primer wantonly talked about. When the audience saw Chu Bei, they were first stunned, but after regaining their senses, they all stood up and shouted. Since that's the case, then I won't beat around the bush. Chu Bei smiled. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, a black square box appeared. Bang! With a loud sound, the square box exploded. It was an ancient book covered with the marks of time. On the cover of the book were the words, Buddha's Palm. Almost at the same time, information about the Buddha's palm appeared in Chu Bei's mind. When he saw the big words on the cover of the book, Chu Bei's mouth twitched. In fact, even without the system's information, he knew a little about this palm technique. Everyone, have you ever seen a palm technique descending from the sky? Chu Bei's smiling voice floated in the auction house. This is the first item I'm auctioning. It's level 6, and its name is the Buddha's Palm. Buddha's Palm? Is it related to palm techniques? What does level 6 mean? Profound or Earth stage? Why haven't I heard of it before? Instantly, everyone's gaze focused on the ancient book in front of Chu Bei. Everyone's eyes were filled with doubt. As for Xiao Yan, who was seated in the 3rd row, his expression changed when he heard Chu Bei mention the so-called palm technique that descended from the sky. When he heard that the Buddha's palm confirmed his thoughts, He couldn't help but blurt out the word "holy shit." "Big brother Xiao Yan, what's wrong with you? Could it be that you know this technique?" Xiao Sun Er looked at Xiao Yan with curiosity on her flawless face. Xiao Zhan and the three elders of the Xiao clan also threw their gazes at Xiao Yan. "This? I think I've seen it in some unofficial history book, but I can't remember the specifics." Xiao Yan quickly made up a story. "Boss Chu, is the level 6 you're talking about profound or earth stage? What's the starting price?" "Below the stage," someone asked. "The items I'm auctioning cannot be judged by your common standards." Chu Bei's gaze swept across the crowd. "What I can guarantee is that the Buddha's palm is very beneficial to King Realm fighters. As for the starting price, it's 20 million gold coins. Each increment must not be less than 500,000 gold coins." "What? 20 million?" When they heard the starting price from Chu Bei's mouth, everyone immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, and several astonished voices sounded in the field. The last item from the primer auction house was only sold for 15 million gold coins. Looking at the unheard of the Buddha's palm, the starting price was 20 million gold coins, not to mention the final price. Once the sky-high price was announced, the auction house became much quieter. Although most of the people present were officials and nobles from the capital, 20 million was not a small amount to them. It was even the income of their family for 2, 3, or even more years. "Boss Chu, we've never heard of this technique before. We can't judge if it's worth this price." "Yeah, even if we took out 20 million gold coins, we would still have to pay a lot." At this time, people from the first and second rows spoke up. Their faces were filled with doubt. Rumble. Just as Chu Bei was about to say something, a roar came from the southeast of the auction house. "Get out of the way!" Amidst the shouting, a group of people forcibly broke through the guards of the primer auction house and appeared at the southeast corner of the auction stage. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man in a white robe. There was a cloud and a long sword imprinted on his chest. Beside the middle-aged man was a middle-aged man in a gray robe. "Cloud Silver Sword! They are from the Yunlan sect? Are they also here to participate in the auction? Looking at this formation, it's a bit strange. The leader seems to be the great elder of the Yunlan sect, Yunling. As for the one beside him, it's the head of the Mo family in the northeast, Mo Lan. As expected, the Mo family and the Yunlan sect are very close. Speaking of the Mo family, I remember that a few days ago, the great elder of the Mo family, Mo Qing, and his group were killed in Wutan City. There's such a thing? Who did it? Could it be that Mo Lan and the people from the Yunlan sect are not here for the auction, but to avenge Mo Qing? Everyone's gazes shifted to Yun Ling and his group, and guesses were heard everywhere. Even in those private rooms, when Yun Ling arrived, there were also whispers. After all, the Yunlan sect was a huge force that was not under the control of the royal family. Any movement of the Yunlan sect would attract the attention of various forces. "You killed Mo Qing?" The battle chi wings behind Yunling's back flapped, and he floated in the air. He looked coldly at Chu Bei. "You're here to avenge him?" Chu Bei looked at Yunling, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and had a playful look on his face. "What? It's Boss Chu who killed Mo Qing." Chu Bei's words were tantamount to a direct admission. Everyone present was shocked. The Mo family is under the protection of the Yunlan sect. You killed him, which is equivalent to not putting the Yunlan sect in your eyes. Yunling's eyes were filled with the chilliness of the cold in the forest. "Since that's the case, a life for a life." Yunling's cold voice spread through the air, and his aura became majestic. The surging battle chi tore through the air, making a sizzling sound. Chapter 55. The Great Elder of the Yunlan Sect. "Mr. Chu, you're in big trouble." "God bless Boss Chu." The citizens of Wutan City who were far away outside the auction house and had come to join in the fun felt the terrifying aura released by Yunling, who was high up in the sky, and their faces were filled with worry. On the other hand, Chu Bei glanced at Yunling, who was getting more and more powerful. His expression didn't change at all. I didn't expect to see some familiar faces in this small Wu-Tan city. Yunling glanced at the 2 rows of seats closest to the round table and said in a low voice, "Since that's the case, I'll take this opportunity to warn you. Even if you're just a subordinate force of the Yunlan sect, you can't be bullied by others." As Yunling's incomparably tyrannical voice fell, the energy around his body instantly surged up like boiling water. Circles of azure-colored substantial energy ripples swiftly spread out from his body. With a clear buzzing sound, a long and thin silver sword appeared in his right hand. The tip of the sword trembled slightly, and the sword body shone brightly. Under the glaring light, the violent energy gathered crazily. "This power, he's using such a killer move right from the start. Looks like he's also very cautious." Murmurs could be heard from the third box. In the air, Yunling's speed of swinging his sword increased. Every time he accumulated energy, the energy ripples from the sword body became more and more terrifying. Just when everyone's eyes were focused on Yunling, Chu Bei on the auction stage also released a wave of energy. At the same time, a pair of battle energy wings appeared on his back and he flew to the sky above Yunling. 2 stars fighting king? This old man Hai said that the mysterious merchant who could break the seal on the Medusa snake is only a 2 stars fighting king? He must have something special. Otherwise, old man Hai wouldn't value him so much. If he's really a 2 stars fighting king, I'm afraid he won't be able to withstand Yunling's killer move. Just as Chu Bei unleashed his aura, various noises rang out from the private rooms and corners of the venue. "It seems that I have overestimated you." Yunling raised his head and looked at Chu Bei. After determining the latter's cultivation base, he sneered. "Extreme wind, glorious sunset!" Accompanied by a cold shout, Yunling fiercely flicked the slender silver sword in his hand to the ground. Suddenly, the sword's already dazzling white light exploded once again, covering the blazing sunlight in the sky. It was also at this moment that the terrifying energy fluctuations at the tip of the sword that had been accumulating for a long time finally erupted. An incomparably terrifying and sharp sword chi soared into the sky, heading straight for Chu Bei. Everywhere this sword chi passed, space seemed as if it was being torn apart, and hissing sounds caused one's heart to tremble. "It really is this move! One of the Yunlan sect's strongest fighting techniques!" Exclamations could be heard from all around the auction stage. However, just as the sharp sword chi was about to pierce through the figure above, Suddenly, a ray of bright golden light bloomed from the figure's body, rapidly expanding and evolving. It was a gigantic right palm that was hundreds of feet long, or even close to 1,000 feet long, as if it was made of metal. "Buddha's palm!" Almost at the same time, for light syllables rang in everyone's ears. Rumble, the huge golden palm slammed down, and the void roared. Its speed was extremely fast. Whoosh! The sharp sword chi crashed into the huge golden palm. However, in front of the huge figure that was almost 100 feet tall, the sharp sword chi was no different from a grain of sand. At the moment of collision, it was annihilated by the former. What? What a terrifying power! Could this be the fighting technique that was just auctioned off? If that's the case, it's worth far more than 20 million. Good heavens! It really fell from the sky. In front of the auction stage, exclamations could be heard from all the boxes. The eyes of the high officials and nobles who were unable to enter the private rooms were filled with fervor, as if they were determined to win. How is this possible? Seeing that his attack was disintegrated in an instant, Yunling's pupils shrank, and his face was filled with disbelief. When he came back to his senses, Yunling looked at the huge golden palm that was getting closer and closer. He did not have time to think and waved the silver sword in his hand again. Wind-splitting whirlwind dance! Yunling shouted again, and several dark green wind blades that were 70 to 80 feet long appeared from the tip of the sword. They intertwined into a whirlwind and met the huge golden palm. Boom! However, it only brought about a loud sound. No! No! Looking at the shattered whirlwind and the huge figure that was close at hand, Yunling's face was filled with fear. Bang! With a dull sound, under the gaze of countless people below, Yunling's body exploded, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. After forcefully bombarding Yunling to death, the enormous golden palm transformed into strands of golden light and disappeared. Dead! Dead! The great elder of the Yunlan sect is dead! He died under the Buddha's palm! The people who were watching the battle recovered from their absent-mindedness and looked at each other. In box number 1. Great-grandfather, can you tell what level of Do skill the Buddha's palm is? Early in the night, through the window, he pointed to the sky and tilted his head to look at Jixingxian, who was beside him. It's hard to say. Jixingxian shook his head. I'm afraid that I can only make a judgment after I practice it. Imperial grandfather, from what you said, are you prepared to take down the Buddha's palm? The Jiama emperor opened his mouth and asked. What do you think? Jixingxian stroked his beard, glanced at the Jiama emperor, and said meaningfully. In box number 3. The great elder is still dead. Nalan Yenren bit her lips and stared at Chu Bei, who was still in the sky. The fear in her eyes was even more intense. Is that Do skill really that powerful? It can actually easily kill the 6-star Do King Yunlin. Nalan Su frowned. From the aura on his body, he only used the strength of 2 stars Do King. This Buddha's palm cannot be underestimated. Nalan Jia narrowed his eyes. Grandfather, are we going to bid? Nalan Yenren opened her mouth. Nalan Jia sighed. Everyone has seen the power of the Buddha's palm with their own eyes. It won't be easy to get it. Other than that, there was also a commotion in the other big boxes. At this moment, Chu Bei had also returned to the auction stage. His gaze landed on Mo Lan. Don't kill me. Mo Lan fell to the ground and stared at Chu Bei with extreme fear. He kept retreating. Chu Bei did not care about Mo Lan's pleas for mercy. He directly struck out with his palm. The sharp Do Chi wind blade broke through Mo Lan's Do Chi armor and cut open his neck. After dealing with Mo Lan, Chu Bei walked back to the edge of the auction stage. He flipped his right hand and the ancient book with the Buddha's palm imprinted with the marks of time appeared in his palm once again. Everyone, you have also seen the palm from before. It is a simulation of the strength of 2 stars Do King. Chu Bei smiled as he looked at the crowd below the stage. He cleared his throat. After watching the actual battle, are any of you tempted by the Buddha's palm? It is level 6 and the starting price is 20 million gold coins. Each increment must not be less than 500,000 gold coins. Chapter 56. 21 million! As soon as Chu Bei's voice fell, someone in the first row below the stage could not wait to raise his paddle and bid. The bidder was sitting in the first row of the inner circle. He was a famous rich man in the empire. 5 million! Soon, a second person made a bid. He was also prominent. 22 million! The third person raised his paddle. In just a few seconds, there were nearly 10 people below the stage who participated in the bidding. The bidding price soon broke through 25 million. 28 million! When the last bidder made a bid of 26 million, a powerful voice floated in the air. Who is it? He actually raised the price by 2 million. Room 4, the Mu family of the 3 big families. As expected, they are also tempted. With them bidding, we won't be able to play anymore. Hearing the voice from box number 3, the people who had bid earlier fell silent one after another. 30 million! At this moment, a voice came from room 3. The Nalan family has made a move! Everyone looked at room 3. 32 million! However, less than 2 seconds after Nalan Jia's bid, a voice came from room 2. As far as I know, the people sitting in room 2 are from the Primer family. This is a bit dramatic. They are also participating in the bidding. Haha, Dragon and Tiger are fighting. I wonder who will get the Buddha's palm in the end. Below the stage, the gazes of the nobles and officials shifted back and forth between the several boxes. Tingshan, what do you mean by this? Mu Chen's voice came from room 4. Brother Mu, I'm not deliberately making things difficult for you. Although I, Primer, and the organizer of this auction, Boss Chu's items are not directly related to us. If we want to get this treasure, we can only bid. Primer Tingshan responded. 34 million! Hearing Primer Tingshan's words, Muchin snorted and raised the price again. 36 million! In room 2, Nayland Su raised the price again. 38 million! Primer Tingshan raised the price. 40 million! Under the competition of the three great clans of the empire, the price of the Buddha's palm quickly broke through the 40 million mark. Gentlemen, Boss Chu wants to auction 6 items today, and this Buddha's palm is only the first of the 3 level 6 items. Why don't you give me some face and let me have it? Just as the competition between the 3 clans was getting intense, a dignified voice came from room number 1. At the same time, the bid of 45 million echoed in everyone's ears. The royal family has made their move. Since the Jiama Emperor has spoken, even the 3 big clans would have to give him some face. Hearing this, everyone below the stage was shocked. The reality was indeed so. After the Jiama Emperor directly increased the bid by 5 million and announced a bid of 45 million, the 3 large clans did not increase the bid any further. One of the reasons why they chose to give up was, of course, to give face to the royal family. As for the second reason, the price of 45 million was probably the bottom line of their budget. Everyone, is there anyone else who wants to raise the price? This was a palm technique that descended from the heavens. In the vast Dochi continent, I am the only one. Hearing that there was no movement below the stage and in the big rooms, Chu Bei cleared his throat. However, after 10 seconds there was still no sound of anyone raising the price. Since that is the case, the first level 6 item, Buddha's palm, will go to room number 1. Chu Bei smiled. He was already very satisfied with the final bid of 45 million. After the Buddha's palm was sold, under countless gazes, Chu Bei waved his sleeve and another black square box appeared. Bang! With a familiar muffled sound, the square box exploded. It was a green scroll that seemed to be made of silk. There were various patterns engraved on the scroll. At the top of the pattern, there were 4 big words, Cold Ice Soft Palm. Looking at the familiar name, before Chu Bei could make a detour, the information about the Cold Ice Soft Palm flowed into his mind. This palm technique originated from the Ming cult's green-winged bat king Wei Xiaoyan, the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. It was also strengthened by the system. Boss Chu, what is the second item that you are auctioning? Looking at the green scroll, there were already people below the stage who couldn't hold back anymore. Chu Bei came back to his senses and swept his gaze across the private rooms. This is also a palm technique. It's called the Cold Ice Silk Palm. It's best for those who practice ice attribute techniques to cultivate. However, anyone who is hit by it will feel cold all over, their blood will freeze, their meridians and bones will become stiff, and it will be difficult for them to control themselves. It will be life-threatening. While Chu Bei was describing the Cold Ice Soft Palm, he used the battle energy fluctuation of the 2 stars fighting king to perform the palm. He flipped his right hand. Although his movements seemed slow, every time he moved his hand, the temperature around his body would drop by a level, until there was a bone-chilling green energy ripple in front of his palm. TSK! TSK! Chu Bei struck with his palm. Wherever the energy ripple passed, a thick layer of ice crystals instantly appeared. The huge auction stage completely turned into a piece of ice, emitting coldness in all directions. The bidding rules for this palm technique are the same as the Buddha's palm. The starting price is 20 million, and each increment must not be lower than 500,000. Chu Bei said lightly. 30 million! As soon as Chu Bei's calm voice fell, Mu Chen's voice came from the 4th room. He directly increased the price by 10 million. Hearing this bid, there was a sigh from the audience. Naturally, no one followed the bid. 32 million! Nayland Su in the 3rd room said. 34 million! A voice came from the 1st room as well. 36 million! In the 4th room, Mu Chen hesitated for a moment, and continued to bid. 38 million. In the third room, Nayland Su also continued to bid after receiving Nayland Jie's instructions. Your Majesty, Brother Nayland, Brother Mu, you should all know that the people of my primer family practice ice attribute techniques. This palm technique is perfect for us. At this moment, Primer Tingshan's voice came from the second room. I wonder if you can give us a chance? After saying that, Mitre Tingshan quoted a price of 40 million. Brother Tingshan, my Mu family, including myself, also practice ice attribute techniques. I'm afraid we can't give you face. A vigorous voice came from the fourth room. Oh? I didn't expect that after only a few decades, your Mu family won't even give me primer face? However, before Mu Qin could raise the price, a low and cold snort came from the second room. At the same time, a figure flew out from the room and floated in midair. A bone-piercing chill spread out from his body. Ice Emperor Hype Don. The news is true. He's really still alive. I heard that as soon as he returned, he looked for the old man in the palace to spar. The people in the room were all people of high status in the empire. Naturally, there were people who recognized Hype Don. Beiji has something to say. Everyone who is reading this can be considered to have stayed because of the content of this book. Or perhaps, your resistance to poison is stronger. Haha, for the new book, please vote for it. Move your fingers and loosen your muscles. Thank you. Chapter 57. Young man Mu, if you don't give face to Primer, what about me, Hype Don? Above the second box, Bai Buidong stared coldly at the fourth box. Since Elder Hai has spoken in this way, how could I, Mu Chen, dare to continue bidding? Mu Chen replied, and his voice revealed displeasure. Hype Don looked at Chu Bei. Don't do it again. Chu Bei looked at Hype Don calmly. Hippodon's heart sank when he met Chu Bei's gaze. He seemed to realize that he had done something wrong. Just as he was about to say something, Chu Bei spoke again. If no one raises the price, this frost silk palm will go to box 2. The final price will be $40 million. After Chu Bei put away the frost silk palm, he waved his sleeve again, and the third black square box appeared. Bang! Under countless gazes, the square box exploded. Just like the Buddha's palm, it was a book filled with time. Flipping to the first page, the contents were similar to the general formula. Returning sister to Wu Wang to Tongren to Diu, Jia to Bing to Gung to Gai, Zi to Chou, Chan to Si, Wu to Wei, wind and thunder to one change, mountain and lake to one change, water and fire to one change, heaven and earth to stimulate, Jin and Dui to stimulate, Li and Sun to stimulate, 3 increased to 5, 5 increased to 9, starting from the second page. It was divided into sword breaking style, saber breaking style, spear breaking style, whip breaking style, and other units. Each unit had a detailed picture. The solitary 9 swords was created by the sword demon, Duduchiobai. Ladies and gentlemen, the third level 6 item is a set of sword techniques called the solitary 9 swords. Chu Bei explained as he waved the sword. This sword technique looks fake, but every move is an attack. There is no retreat, no move is better than a move. Below the auction stage, a group of dignitaries stared at the sword in Chu Bei's hand. They were dazzled. Although they were quite a distance away from the auction stage, they could faintly feel the pressure from the sword. Every swing of the sword was accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder. You won't bid again this time, right? Just as Chu Bei announced the starting price of 20 million, Nayland Jie's voice came from box 3. Brother Nayland, have you forgotten about my Mu clan? Mu Chen's voice sounded. Of course I didn't forget, Brother Mu. Nayland Jie laughed loudly and continued. The Tathagata Divine Palm was auctioned for 45 million and was obtained by His Majesty. The Cold Ice Silk Palm was auctioned for 40 million and was obtained by Old Hai. Why don't I offer 50 million for this Duga 9 swords first, and Brother Mu can add another 25 million later? How about we share this sword art? Mu Qin fell silent for a short while before he said, I agree. Do the other booths have any objections? On the auction stage, Chu Bei's gaze swept across the booths. Although Nayland Jie's bidding method was different from the normal bidding method, the price he offered made Chu Bei quite satisfied. Naturally, he wouldn't say anything. Since no one is bidding, the Duga 9 swords belongs to box 3. Chu Bei announced the result. The auction for the level 6 item has ended. Next is the level 7 item. As soon as Chu Bei's voice fell, the people below the stage trembled. The anticipation on their faces grew. They had already seen the actual power of the Tathagata Divine Palm. A 2-stars King of Fighters could easily kill a 6-stars King of Fighters. Judging from this, the level 7 item was obviously more precious. Unlike the level 6 item's black box, the level 7 item was stored in a red box. Bang! With a loud bang, the red box exploded. In an instant, a refreshing pill fragrance lingered at the tip of everyone's nose. What a rich pill fragrance! I've never heard of it. What grade is that? Everyone's eyes suddenly focused. It was a thumb-sized crystal-clear pill. Beside it floated a piece of paper with densely packed words written on it. This is Huang Dan. No matter if you are a 1-star Do Huang or an 8-star Do Huang, as long as you consume it, your cultivation will immediately increase by 1 star without any side effects. Chu Bei pinched the Huang Dan. After explaining its effects, he pointed to the paper filled with words. As for this, it is the pill formula that is included. It details the method to refine this pill, including the ingredients, cultivation requirements, heat control, etc. Huang Dan! There's such a pill? Why have I never heard of it? What's even more ridiculous is that it can instantly increase one's cultivation without needing to be digested. Come to think of it, aren't all of Boss Chu's items strange? If this Huang Dan is really as Boss Chu said, then the pill formula that is included is probably the most precious. With this pill formula and an alchemist who can refine this pill, Do Huangs will probably rush like a flock of ducks. Countless Do Huangs favor. This kind of power is scary just thinking about it. In an instant, a clamor of discussion rose from all directions. Boss Chu, what's the starting price? The Ice Emperor Hypedon looked excited. His eyes stared at the Huang Dan and the pill formula, and he couldn't wait to ask. 50 million, each increment must be no less than 5 million. Chu Bei's voice was calm. Hiss! Hearing this price, there was a sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air. Just the starting price was already far beyond what they could afford. 55 million! Hypedon didn't hesitate and directly bid. 60 million! But just as Hippodon's voice fell, an old man in a linen robe flew out of the number 1 box. He smiled at Hypedon and followed the price. Is he the guardian of the royal family in the depths of the palace? I'm lucky enough to see him with my own eyes. I wonder what level the old man's cultivation has reached. The old man in the linen robe was naturally Jixingxian. As soon as he appeared, he attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's face was filled with respect. Grandfather, should we make a move? Although you won't be able to use it to fight Huang Dan, if we have the pill formula, we can definitely rope in a 6th or even 7th tier alchemist. In the number 3 box, Nayland Yanran looked at Nayland Jie and said, Why wouldn't I know? Nayland Yanran looked at Nayland Yanran, shook his head and sighed. But Jixingxian and Hypedon are both Do Huangs. With them here, how can we get it? Unless your master is here. Who would have thought that Wu-Tan City was hiding such a mysterious person who also has so many treasures? Nayland Yanran bit her lips. 65 million. After Jixingxian called out the price, Hypedon still did not hesitate to bid. 70 million. Jixingxian stroked his beard. 75 million. 80 million, 85 million. Hypedon and Jixingxian bid one after another. Both of them looked determined to win. Under the two's bidding, the price quickly reached 90 million. Old man Jia, are you done yet? Hypedon stared at Jixingxian and coldly snorted. Why don't we compare notes with martial arts? Whoever wins gets it, how about it? Jixingxian looked at Hypedon with a smile. Let's talk with money. Hypedown looked at Chu Bei and tactfully said, Chapter 58. You two old men aren't alchemists. Why are you interfering? Just as Hypedown and Jixingxian were arguing, a purple figure flew out from box number 5. It was a white-haired old man. He's the president of the Empire's Alchemist Association, the Dharma Mammoth. Now it's even more lively. The crowd quickly recognized the Dharma Mammoth and exclaimed, I almost forgot that you're here too. Hypedown and Jixingxian looked at the Dharma Mammoth, and then looked at the Huang Dan in Chu Bei's hand. They hesitated for a moment, and seemed to have made some kind of decision. That's right. Sensing the expressions of Hypedown and Jixingxian, the Dharma Mammoth smiled and said, The price now is not a small sum for any of you. It can even be said that once you take this item, the other grade 7 item or even the higher grade 8 item will no longer have the ability to compete. At this point, the Dharma Mammoth turned his gaze to Chu Bei and raised a finger. I bid 100 million. Do the two of you want to continue bidding? Chu Bei looked at Hypedown and Jixingxian and said calmly. Hypedown and Jixingxian looked at each other and remained silent. The Dharma Mammoth's words had indeed touched their hearts. If they took the Huang Dan, they would not be able to participate in the next auction. Since no one wants to bid, the Huang Dan and the pill formula will go to box number 5. Chu Bei said calmly. Hearing Chu Bei's announcement, the Dharma Mammoth breathed a sigh of relief and put down the heavy stone in his heart. 100 million gold coins was all the wealth of the Alchemist Association for the past 10 years. He was really afraid that the two old men would stubbornly hold on to the pill formula. Next is the second grade 7 item. Chu Bei glanced at the crowd and pointed his finger. The second black box appeared. Clang clang, the black box exploded. Inside were 9 intertwined black chains. Aren't these ordinary chains intertwined? Could it be that the material is special? Could it be some kind of divine weapon? It doesn't look like its value is on the same level as the Huang Dan and the pill formula. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the intertwined chains in Chu Bei's hands. Everyone's faces were filled with confusion. It's a defensive formation. It's a defensive formation. As Chu Bei spoke, he threw the 9 intertwined chains into the air. With a loud buzzing sound, the 9 iron chains quickly expanded and formed a hemispherical giant net that enveloped the entire auction house. The ends of the iron chains were inserted in 9 different directions, and the areas where the iron chains intersected with each other were covered with a layer of light film. This formation is controlled by the owner. It can defend against the attack of a 3-star dose zone for up to 6 hours. Chu Bei pointed at the eye of the 9 chains formation and added, It can defend against a 3-star dose zone. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Jixingxian and Hypedown were eager to try. In the next moment, the two figures moved. They gathered all the strength in their bodies and attacked the formation. Bang! Accompanied by 2 earth-shattering sounds, only a ripple appeared at the place where the two of them attacked. There was no damage at all. Seeing the scene in front of them, Jixingxian and Hypedown became excited at the same time. They looked as if they were determined to win. This kind of defensive formation could protect a clan in times of danger. The starting price is still 50 million. Each increment must be no less than 5 million. Chu Bei's lips slightly opened. 55 million. 60 million. 65 million. 70 million. 75 million. 80 million. As soon as Chu Bei's voice fell, Jixingxian and Hypedown began to crazily bid. In a few seconds, the price had exceeded Huang Dan's by 100 million. Only when Jixingxian called out 120 million did Hypedown stop. Old ice, you left for decades. It can be seen that the Primer family is not that important to you. So there's no need to use up all your assets for this defensive formation. Jixingxian looked at Hypedown with a serious expression. Moreover, there are still level 8 items. Hypedown hesitated for a moment, then said, Fine, I don't want you to worry about the safety of the royal family after you die. With this formation, you won't have to worry in the underworld. I'll let you have it. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? Chu Bei asked. 130 million. However, just when everyone thought that the 9-chain formation would fall into the hands of the royal family, a loud voice floated in the air. This voice did not come from the box, but from the seats below the stage. Who is that guy? I've never seen him before. He's not here to cause trouble, right? What kind of joke is this? The one bidding is the one from the royal family. Who has the guts to cause trouble? Unless they don't want to live anymore. Whoosh! Everyone in the field, including Jixingxian, Hype Don, Dharma Mammoth, and the others, all looked at the third row of the inner circle, a man in a black robe. Next to the man in the black robe sat a woman in green. Next to the woman in green were Xiao Yan, Xiao Suner, and the others. Instructor Ro Lin, have you taken a fancy to this 9-chain formation? Xiao Yan looked curiously at the woman in green. Our college is divided into the outer and inner courts. The inner court has a tower called the Blazing Sky Chi Refining Tower. Recently, this tower has been a bit restless. If there really is a problem one day, this formation should come in handy. The woman in green responded. The tower is restless? Xiao Yan looked even more confused. You'll know when you enter the college. The woman in green said no more. At this moment, the man in the black robe stood up from his seat. Boss Chu, my name is Luo Tian. I'm an instructor at Canaan College. I've been to your shop before. Do you still remember? Luo Tian's gaze focused on Chu Bei. What? Canaan College. I remember now. This is the time when Canaan College's instructors go out to recruit students. If Canaan College also takes a fancy to this formation, then the result will be hard to say. Yes, Canaan College is known throughout the continent as the Holy Land of Cultivation. Who knows how many powerhouses it has cultivated? Its background is even more unimaginable. Knowing Luo Tian's identity, everyone in the field was shocked. I didn't expect Canaan College to also take a fancy to this formation. What's your bottom line? Jixingxian frowned. At all costs. Luo Tian responded. Hearing this, Jixingxian's face turned even uglier. After a long time, he relaxed. Fine, I'll give Canaan College some face. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? Chu Bei asked professionally. Since no one wants to bid, the 9-chain formation goes to Canaan College's instructor Luo Tian. Chu Bei announced the result. When the auction for the 9-chain formation ended, the audience looked at Chu Bei's hand movements. They all stood up and stared with their eyes wide open. They knew that the next item was the last item of the auction. It was also the most valuable of all the auction items. Chapter 59. Everyone, the next item to be auctioned is the last of the 6 items that I have brought this time. It is also the highest grade item. On the auction stage, Chu Bei's gaze swept across the crowd. With a wave of his sleeve, a purple square box appeared. Compared to the level 6 and 7 square boxes, the level 8 square box was surrounded by strands of colorful mist, making it look even more luxurious and noble. No one in the auction hall made any noise. Everyone stared at the purple square box, their eyes filled with anticipation. Bang! A loud sound rang out. A red and gold-colored armor appeared in front of everyone's eyes. When Chu Bei saw this armor, his expression froze. It was inexplicably familiar. At this moment, information about this armor flowed into Chu Bei's mind. This armor came from Iron Man Tony's 9th generation armor. Of course, it was also improved by the system. Boss Chu, quickly tell us. Jixingxian couldn't wait to speak. In his opinion, the most powerful person to obtain this armor was his royal family. Mark 9 Battle Armor. It has the ability to fly. There is an energy source stored in the chest. The arms have a variety of strange attacks. The palms can also shoot energy cannons. Chu Bei calmly looked at Jixingxian. As for what kind of battle power it can display, it depends on the strength of the owner. Speaking up to this point, Chu Bei added, "If a 9-star Dohwan uses it, it can fight against a 3-star Dozone. If a 3-star Dozone wears it, it won't be weaker than a 6-star Dozone. It has such an increase." After listening to Chu Bei's description of the Mark 9 battle armor, Jixingxin took a deep breath. His eyes were wide open. Hippodon's expression was also restless. Dharma Mammoth, Nailan Jie, Mu Qin, and the others helplessly sighed. "Because of this battle armor, the combat strength of different people with different strengths is different, so I can't demonstrate it to you. However, I guarantee that if the person who wins the bid wears this armor and doesn't have the boost that I mentioned earlier, the full amount of compensation will be 3 times the original amount." Chu Bei patted the armor in front of him lightly and said in a powerful and resonant voice, "Boss Chu, we believe in you. Hurry up and tell us the starting price and the rules for increasing the price." Jixingxin was impatient. "Haha, how can I not try such a good armor first?" However, just as Chu Bei was about to speak, a mocking laugh drifted out from the crowd. Immediately afterward, the crowd felt the space around them fluctuate, and 2 figures, one gold and one silver, appeared above the auction stage like ghosts. One of the 2 figures was wearing a golden robe, while the other was wearing a silver robe. If one were to look closely, one would find that both of them were of the same build. Their hair and beards were white, and their facial features looked as if they were carved from the same mold. "Mr. Gold Silver!" While the crowd was still guessing the identity of the 2 gold and silver robed elders, the expression of the Jiaolan Academy's instructor, Luo Tian, suddenly changed as he exclaimed. Hearing Luo Tian reveal the identity of the person who had appeared, Jixingxin, Hype Dan, Dharma Mammoth, and the others were at a loss. After which, their expressions instantly became serious. Although they had never seen Mr. Gold Silver, they had heard of him. Due to the special terrain, the Doqi continent had given birth to the most chaotic region. Countless strong people from various countries who had fled had landed in this region and established the most barbaric rules. This region was called the Black Corner region. This Mr. Gold Silver was a famous top expert in the Black Corner region. Although the 2 of them were only at the peak of the Dohuang class, they were twins. Additionally, the Qi method they practiced was the same, so they complemented each other. If they were to fight against an enemy together, they could even fight against an ordinary 2-star Dozone. If they were to meet a 1-star Dozone, the 1-star Dozone could only flee. Why are they not in the Black Corner region? Why are they here? Let's not talk about the reason first. I'm afraid that the following auction will not be able to proceed normally. Jixingxin and Hype Dan glanced at each other. There was an additional vigilance on their faces. If you are interested in the battle armor, you can participate in the auction. The highest bidder will get it. Chu Bei indifferently glanced at the Gold-Silver brothers. Although we are interested, we don't have the money. Therefore, we can only use another method. The golden-robed old man placed his hands behind his back. He had an arrogant expression. Not only that battle armor, we also want the 5 pieces that were auctioned earlier. The silver-robed old man laughed loudly. His face was treacherous. Hearing this, Chu Bei smiled and did not give any response. Attack! The golden-robed old man was too lazy to speak nonsense. As his cry sounded, his right palm rotated slightly. A majestic doqi was spat out from his palm, causing the surrounding space to tremble. This aura is indeed worthy of its reputation. Feeling the aura created by the golden-robed old man, Jixingxin and Hippodon's faces became increasingly gloomy. Qi! In the next moment, the golden-robed old man waved his sleeve. A powerful doqi pillar suddenly shot out from his sleeve. It tore through the void and targeted Chu Bei. Chu Bei did not dodge. Seeing that the doqi pillar was about to pierce through him, he extended his finger. Bang! The doqi pillar seemed to have collided with an invisible wall of light. It was accompanied by a low muffled sound and turned into nothingness. You have some skills! Looking at his attack that had strangely disappeared, the golden-robed old man frowned. Then, he tilted his head to look at the silver-robed old man and communicated with his eyes. Immediately, the gold-silver brothers' figures quickly intertwined. Two different types of powerful doji that came from the same source began to intertwine and complement each other. Suddenly, an aura that far exceeded that of a peak do huang spread out. Under this terrifying aura, the people below instinctively propped up their doji armor. At the same time, they nervously looked at Chu Bei with pity and sympathy on their faces. Die! His cold voice exploded like a clap of thunder. Two figures, one gold and one silver, intertwined into a terrifying red and white light beam that shot toward Chu Bei at an extremely fast speed. Wherever the light beam passed, the void was faintly distorted. Its power was frightening. However, there was not a trace of fear in Chu Bei's eyes. Instead, there was a hint of playfulness in them. His body lowered slightly, and his hands formed the shape of a flower at his waist. When this action was formed, a strange buzzing sound suddenly came from the sky above the huge fighting arena. Then countless dense light spots that could be seen with the naked eye gathered in Chu Bei's palm until they condensed into a ball of light. The ball of light grew bigger and bigger. The glaring light made it impossible for people to look directly at it. Chu Bei pushed out his hands. The ball of light shot out like a meteor, dragging a blue tail behind it. In the blink of an eye, the ball of light collided with the red and white light beams formed by the gold-silver brothers. Rumble! With a loud noise, the red and white light beams were directly swallowed by the ball of light. The gold-silver brothers did not even have time to scream before they were turned into nothingness in the ball of light. Not even their bones were left. In the end, the ball of light tore a huge gap in the void and entered it before exploding again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Looking at the gap in the distant sky where the explosion occurred, coupled with the buzzing sound that kept reverberating in their ears. For a moment, everyone, including Jixingshan, Hype Dan, and the Dharma Mammoth, fell into a trance. Chapter 60. Dozong! And a high-level Dozong! I didn't expect such a terrifying expert to live in the small Wu-Tan city. The gold-silver brothers are really pitiful. They probably didn't expect to fall here even when they died. Everyone in the field stared blankly at the place of the explosion, recalling the scene where the gold-silver brothers turned into nothingness. One by one, they looked at Chu Bei with more worship and respect. Hype Dan took a deep breath, tilted his head to look at Jixingshan, and leisurely said, Old Jia, now you understand why I didn't hesitate to use all the power of the clan to help Boss Chu hold this auction. Jixingshan glanced at Hype Dan, but didn't say anything. He just nodded solemnly. For the imperial family, it was hard to say whether such a terrifying expert living in seclusion in the empire was a blessing or a curse. I am a businessman. I run a small business, clearly mark the price, and deceive neither the old nor the young. But if someone doesn't follow the rules, then I can only receive them in an unfriendly manner. At this time, a voice without the slightest emotion suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. As the voice sounded, the field instantly became quiet, and everyone looked at Chu Bei with some fear in their eyes. Everyone, what happened just now? You just watched a show. This auction will continue, waiting for you to bid, Chu Bei said with a smile. The starting price of the Mark 9 battle armor is 200 million, and each bid must not be less than 10 million. As for the move that killed the gold-silver brothers, he used the one-time use of a level 8 commodity given by the system. It was called Kamehameha, and it came from the Dragon Ball plane. It was a unique skill created by Master Rashi. Hearing Chu Bei's words, everyone in the field realized that the auction wasn't over yet. 210 million! Jixingshan was slightly stunned, and was the first to bid. 220 million! Hype Dan slightly hesitated and raised the price. Old Ice, what do you think? Jixingshan glanced at Hype Dan. Hype Dan rolled his eyes at Jixingshan. Whoever gets this battle armor will have the strength of a Dozong. Of course, I want to compete. You old man, you are really something. Jixingshan glared at Hype Dan and said, 230 million. 240 million. 250 million, 260 million, 270 million, 280 million. While Jia Xingtian and Haibo Dong were constantly bidding, a group of officials and nobles had already let out a gasp. Not to mention the current price of 300 million, even the starting price of 200 million was already an astronomical figure that was out of their reach. 250 million! Finally, when Middle and Tingshan flew out of the box, the two people's bidding came to a conclusion. Just as Haipdan was about to raise the price, Tingshan helplessly whispered a few words into Hippodan's ear. At this moment, Hippodan's brows were tightly knitted, and his face was filled with resentment and unwillingness. Old Eyes, if you continue to bid, my imperial treasury will be completely empty. Jixingtian let out a long sigh. Everyone, is there anyone else who wants to raise the price? A few seconds later, Chu Bei's calm voice sounded. If that's the case, then 400 million. However, just when everyone thought that Jixingtian was the final winner and Chu Bei was about to announce the result, a cold and indifferent voice floated in the air. Who is it? Everyone stood up and looked in the direction of the voice. As a matter of fact, the person with the greatest emotional fluctuation was none other than Haipdan, who had been bidding with Jixingtian. When he heard the voice, his body trembled violently. Then, his eyes surged with monstrous hatred as he clenched his fists. The person who bid was a woman. She was wearing a graceful purple brocade robe. Beneath the embroidered robe was a voluptuous and exquisite figure. Her head of fine black hair casually draped over her fragrant shoulders and hung down to her slender willowy waist. Unfortunately, she was wearing a black veil hat, making it difficult to see her face. Medusa! Haipdan shouted. Medusa? She is Queen Medusa of the Naga tribe. Why is she here? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the purple-robed woman. At first, they were stunned. Then, everyone, including Jixingtian and Dharma Mammoth, changed their expressions. I didn't expect you to be the one who broke my seal. Medusa glanced at Haipdan with disdain. If I'm not wrong, it should be Boss Chu's doing. All these years of misfortune are all thanks to you. Haipdan snorted coldly. If the two of you want to catch up, you can find another time. Chu Bei's gaze swept across Medusa, Haipdan, and finally landed on Jixingtian. Do you want to continue bidding? Jixingtian was silent for a while. After communicating with the Jiama Emperor, he shook his head. The current maximum amount of funds that the Imperial Treasury could use was 380 million. This was also the lowest price that the Imperial family could bid. Unlike the Naga tribe lived in the Tagar Desert all year round. The wealth accumulated over hundreds of years was not of much use to them. On the other hand, the Imperial family of the Empire had to keep enough funds to maintain the normal operations of the palace. Of course, the main reason why Jixingtian gave up on bidding was because the bidder was Queen Medusa of the Naga tribe. From the information he received, Medusa had recently been promoted to a Do zone. She was not someone that he could provoke. On the other hand, if the bidder was Haipdan or the Dharma Mammoth, he would get this armor at all costs. Since no one is bidding, I announce that the level 8 Mark 9 battle armor is won by Queen Medusa of the Naga tribe. Chu Bei's loud voice reverberated throughout the auction house, signifying the end of the auction. In the next 2 hours, Chu Bei was immersed in the joy of receiving the goods with one hand and receiving the money with the other. Every time the system received willpower, he would receive 1/5 of the willpower due to the reverse nurturing. The 6 items were auctioned for a total of 765 million. Converted to willpower, the system received 765 million willpower, and he received 153 million willpower. In addition to the previous 205,000 willpower. Now, Chu Bei had a total of 735 million willpower. Once he returned to the All Heavens shop, Chu Bei opened the system interface. For a king of Fighting Realm, it would require 200,000 willpower points to exchange for a 1-star cultivation base. Chu Bei did not hesitate and used 4,000,000 willpower to raise his cultivation from 2 stars to 9 stars. It was not that he did not want to break through to King Realm, but that 1-star cultivation required 500,000 willpower. In 7 days, Host must adapt and stabilize his current cultivation. During this time, Host is not allowed to sell any items. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded. Chu Bei was stunned. This directly interrupted his thoughts of becoming a Do Huang on the 2nd day. The sun set in the west. Although the All-Heavens Shop auction had ended, the pedestrians in Wutan City and on the roads leading to other cities were still talking about it. Chapter 61. The next morning, just as Chu Bei woke up, Xiao Yan, Xiao Zhan, and the others came to the shop. For the next 7 days, we won't be selling any treasure chests. Chu Bei glanced at Xiao Yan and said calmly, Boss Chu, I'm not here to buy treasure chests. Sun Er and I are here to bid you farewell. Xiao Yan held Xiao Sun Er's hand and looked at Noa Lin. In half an hour, Sun Er and I will be on our way to Canaan College with the 2 mentors. New function of the system, offline, please take a look. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Chu Bei was about to say something, but the system's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Bei was slightly stunned and immediately checked the system interface. There was a new 2nd-level page on the main interface. In the middle of the page, the word agent was particularly eye-catching. At this moment, a stream of information about the agent interface flowed into Chu Bei's mind. Soon, Chu Bei understood and the corner of his mouth curled up. The so-called agent interface, to put it bluntly, was to develop offline. In the world he came from before he transmigrated, this model was already mature. A formal one was called a chain. An informal one was called a pyramid scheme. Returning to the agent interface, he saw that agents were divided into 3 levels. Different levels led to different treatment. At this moment, although Chu Bei only had 1 authorization, the agent level he could give was level 1. Boss Chu, what are you thinking? Don't tell me you can't bear to part with me? Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows at Chu Bei. Chu Bei came back to his senses and looked at Xiao Yan. Follow me into the house. Boss Chu, don't tell me you're interested in that. Looking at Chu Bei's back and then at the open door, Xiao Yan's throat moved and his butt tightened. Follow me, Chu Bei said in a deep voice. Forget it, I'm already here. Xiao Yan let out a long breath. With an expression as if he did not care about life or death, he entered Chu Bei's house alone. Boss Chu, are you sure you want to do it here? Sun Er and the others are outside. Xiao Yan was a little nervous. Young man, why are you so nervous? Chu Bei stepped forward and straightened Xiao Yan's clothes. Just as the latter was at a loss, Chu Bei smiled. I called you in to give you an opportunity. After that, Chu Bei told Xiao Yan about the agency. 2 minutes later, Xiao Yan carefully received the purple-colored ring from Chu Bei's hand that had the words, Celestial Shop, engraved on it. He said with incomparable excitement, Boss Chu, you are really my second parent. I can only repay this kindness with my body. Do your job well. Just don't ruin my reputation. Hearing the second half of Xiao Yan's sentence, Chu Bei had a look of disdain. I definitely won't disappoint you. Xiao Yan put on the agency ring and spoke clearly. As an agent, with his current cultivation, he could sell 10 level 3 treasure chests every day. As long as he sold all of them, he would get 1 level 3 treasure chest for free. If he didn't want the treasure chest, he could use it to exchange for his cultivation. Looking at the excited Xiao Yan, Chu Bei smiled. He was the one who benefited the most. The willpower he got from being an agent was not within the limit of what he could sell every day. After confirming that Xiao Yan had learned how to use the agency ring, Chu Bei slowly opened the door. Brother Xiao Yan, why did Boss Chu look for you alone? Seeing Xiao Yan walk out of the room and looking at his satisfied expression, Xiao Sun Er immediately went forward to ask. You will know in the future. Xiao Yan pinched Xiao Sun Er's face and pretended to be mysterious. Then, he cupped his fist towards Chu Bei and said, "Goodbye. Boss Chu, if you have time, come to Canaan College as a guest. The dean would definitely want to make friends with you." Before leaving, Luo Tian represented Canaan College and sent an invitation to Chu Bei. 2 days had passed since the auction ended. The Kama Empire had also completely spread. "Have you heard about the Heaven auction in Wutan City?" "Nonsense, of course I've heard about it. 6 items were sold for 765 million. Terrifying. This mysterious merchant boss Chu is now the richest man in the empire. Even the imperial treasury can't compare to him. Didn't they say that there was a small incident during the auction? The great elder of the Yunlan sect came to cause trouble and was killed. So what? Could it be that the Yunlan sect still dares to cause trouble for Boss Chu? Even Mr. Gold Silver from the Black Corner region was killed by Boss Chu in 1 hit. That's true. Boss Chu is at least a 6-star dozone. Even the previous sect leader of the Yunlan sect is far from him." In merely 2 days, Chu Bei's name had spread to every corner of the Jiama Empire under the effect of the tap water effect. Deep within the misty cloud mountain, the forest was dense and the ravines were crisscrossed. Suddenly, a dense and majestic aura shot up to the sky. Immediately after, a white figure rose from the ravine and laughed loudly. Looking at it, the white figure was wearing an extremely simple white robe. When the breeze blew, there was a kind of otherworldly aura. He did not summon his Do-Chi wings. Instead, he walked in the air. Every time his feet landed, a circle of ripples would appear in the air. When the ripples disappeared, the figure was already 100 meters away. His speed was extremely fast. This person was the previous sect leader of the Yunlan sect, Yunshan. However, when Yunshan passed by the Yunlan sect's plaza and heard the discussions of the disciples below, his laughter disappeared and his face gradually became gloomy. "Where is Yun Yun?" After a few steps, Yunshan arrived at the top of a luxurious hall. His vigorous and loud voice drifted out. "Teacher, you have come out of seclusion." Not long after, a graceful woman flew out from the large hall. Behind her were 6 misty cloud sect's elders. "Greetings, old sect leader." The 6 elders had respectful expressions and bowed to Yunshan in unison. "What happened to Yunling's death?" Yunshan coldly looked at Yun Yun and questioned her. "He provoked someone he shouldn't have." Yun Yun shook her head. After a sigh, she told him everything that she had found out. Just because he was a high-level dozone, he could look down on the Yunlan sect and casually kill our great elder. After hearing Yun Yun's words, Yunshan clenched his fists, and his face became increasingly ugly. Sensing the ruthlessness in Yunshan's eyes, Yun Yun hurriedly said, "Teacher, we can't provoke Boss Chu. Let's drop this matter. So what if he was a high-level dozone? He must pay the price for Yunling's death." Yunshan narrowed his eyes. His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. Canaan College, Freshman Plaza. After the freshmen introduced themselves, they began to get familiar with each other. However, there was one scene that seemed out of place. A young man squatted on the ground and shouted, "Don't miss out on this opportunity. A level 3 treasure chest costs 100,000 each. It's a profit if you buy it. Come and take a look." In front of him was a large piece of black cloth. 10 identical square boxes were arranged in an orderly manner on the cloth. "Xiaoyan Gij, is this the opportunity that Boss Chu gave you?" Looking at the freshmen gathering around and hearing Xiaoyan shout, Xiao Sun Air couldn't help but lower her head. Her face was flushed. "Who is this guy? He actually started a business in the college. I think he's from a small city in the Kama Empire. He's selling boxes? Haha, this is interesting. Let's go and take a look." Xiao Yan's shout quickly became the focus of the plaza. Within a few seconds he was surrounded by people. Chapter 62. Everyone, take a look. If you have money, you might as well take a gamble. If you don't buy, you'll suffer a loss, and if you don't buy, you'll make a killing. In the freshman square, Xiaoyan didn't shy away from shouting loudly, waving at the freshmen around him from time to time. Just one box costs 100,000 gold? What's inside? A group of freshmen carefully looked at the 10 boxes in front of Xiaoyan, their faces filled with curiosity. This box is called a lucky box. If you're lucky, you'll find a treasure when you open it, and you'll get endless benefits. If you're unlucky, you'll get nothing. Xiaoyan smiled. Don't tell me they're all empty boxes. A group of freshmen looked at Xiaoyan suspiciously. That's hard to say. They could all be treasures, or they could be as you guessed. Xiaoyan thought about the probability of him opening the box and said, We're all from the same school. If I don't do business with integrity, I'm afraid it'll be hard for me to stay in the college in the future. Hearing Xiaoyan's words, the surrounding freshmen fell into hesitation. Give me one! I want one too! Canaan College didn't lack students with strong backgrounds. Soon, 3 freshmen were ready to make a move, and spoke one after another. Buzz, just as the 3 freshmen took out a total of 300,000 gold, the proxy ring on Xiaoyan's hand emitted a blue light. In the next moment, the 300,000 gold disappeared. Seeing this scene, the gazes that the new students used to look at Xiaoyan became a little more unusual. Almost at the same time, the 3 freshmen each chose one box from the 10 boxes. Where do we open this box? Just as a freshman opened his mouth to ask, the 3 boxes exploded at the same time. However, the uniform explosion faded away, leaving only 3. Thank you for your patronage. Haha, sure enough, there's nothing. These 3 idiots, they actually believed that there was treasure in the box. The landlord's foolish son. I understand. Hearing the mocking laughter around them, the faces of the 3 freshmen who spent money suddenly turned ugly. An intense anger also rose within the gaze that was used to look at Xiaoyan. As I've said before, there's a chance that there's nothing in this box. Hit him. When Xiaoyan noticed the anger on the 3 freshmen's faces, he stood up to calm them down. However, before he could finish speaking, the 3 of them had already clenched their fists and attacked him. You guys are too impulsive. Xiaoyan did not dodge or avoid the attacks of the 3 freshmen. He sighed and casually extended his palm to meet the attacks. Bang! 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 The fist and the palm collided, and the 3 freshmen were pushed back several meters. They staggered and fell on their butts. That's a battle-chi cloak. Doshir, he is actually a doshir. Oh my god! How is this possible? To think that at my age, a 2-stars fighter is already considered a monster among monsters. Who the hell is he? The gazes of the freshmen all focused on the thin battle-chi cloak around Xiaoyan's body. They were extremely shocked. The 3 freshmen who paid for the boxes got up from the ground. When they saw Xiaoyan's battle-chi cloak, their mouths were wide open and they looked at each other in dismay. The 3 of you are my first customers since I came to the academy. Like I said before, it's a small business, honest business. Xiaoyan looked at the 3 freshmen. This lucky box might not appear, but once it does, its value is far beyond your imagination. Okay. I'll believe you for the time being. Moreover, even if I'm cheated, I'll use this money to buy you as a friend. Among the 3 freshmen who bought the boxes before, the one with a particularly fat body took out 700,000 gold coins. I'll take all of the remaining 7 boxes. Looking at the fat guy who took out 700,000 gold coins to continue buying, Xiaoyan was astonished. Buzz, the proxy ring emitted a blue light and swallowed 700,000 gold coins. Then, the 7 boxes exploded at the same time. 6 of the boxes contained, thank you for your patronage. There was also a square box that contained 9 sparkling and translucent thumb-sized pills. Among the 9 pills, 1 was purple and the other 8 were green. They really opened something. What a rich pill fragrance. Those 9 pills are definitely not normal. Looks like this fellow disciple didn't cheat us. I just don't know what the effects of those 9 pills are. The surrounding freshmen stared with wide eyes as they discussed. Damn. It really opened. The fat guy clicked his tongue, his face full of shock. The reason he spent 700,000 gold coins was no longer for the boxes, but for Xiao Yan's strength. In the academy, if he could find a doge shirt to back him up with 700,000 gold coins, it would be worth it. Brother, can you introduce these 9 pills? I've never seen them before. The fat guy looked at Xiao Yan expectantly. That purple pill is called the revolving pill. As its name suggests, it can help a cultivator condense their qi. You're at 9 duan qi, so it'll be useful for you. After introducing the revolving pill, Xiao Yan pointed at the 8 green pills. These are called doja pills. No matter if you're a 1-star doja or an 8-star doja, taking one will increase your cultivation by 1 star. Is it really like what you said? After listening to Xiao Yan's introduction of the revolving pill and doja pill, the fat guy's eyes lit up. Let's try the revolving pill first and we'll know, Xiao Yan said with a smile. In terms of treasures, this fat guy's luck wasn't bad at all. In fact, it was off the charts. Then let's try it. The fat guy hesitated for a while before taking a deep breath and throwing the revolving pill into his mouth. Hiss! Once the pill entered his mouth, the fat guy couldn't help but let out a gasp. A faint cold feeling spread in his mouth, followed by a warm and pure energy flowing down his throat and into his body. In just a few breaths, the originally calm air around him began to ripple. Traces of pale white doja qi seeped out of the air and into the fat guy's body. The fat guy squinted his eyes as if he was enjoying this feeling. As the person involved, he could feel that the doja qi in his body seemed to have received some kind of command and started to rapidly shrink towards his lower abdomen. After a few seconds, bang! A low muffled sound came from the fat guy's body. Haha, I really succeeded. I've become a doja. Feeling the doja qi in his body, the fat guy suddenly opened his eyes and laughed out loud. The fat on his face violently rose and fell. This is unbelievable. There's actually such a pill. How come I've never heard of it before? Yeah, this fat guy really broke through. The new students could clearly feel the change in the fat guy's body. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Brother, I've already become a doja. Does that mean I can take these 8 doja pills? The fat guy seemed to have thought of something. Looking at the other 8 pills in his hand, he became even more excited. Of course you can. Xiao Yan smiled. He even gestured with an inviting hand gesture. Chapter 63. In the freshman square, the fat kid threw a warrior pill into his mouth in front of hundreds of pairs of eyes. Suddenly, the fat kid's battle chi rose by a level. This is incredible! The fat kid sighed and threw the remaining 7 doja dawn into his mouth. 2 stars warrior. 3 stars warrior. 4 stars warrior. When the last warrior pill was swallowed, the fat kid's battle chi reached its peak. 9 stars warrior. Kacha! The fat kid bent down and punched the bluestone brick under his feet. Accompanied by a crisp sound, the bluestone brick that had been bombarded turned into a pile of rubble that splashed in all directions. This is the power of a 9 stars warrior! The fat kid looked at Xiao Yan with excitement. Brother, you are my savior! It's like a dream, but this dream is actually real. You should be more grateful for your money. I'm just a businessman. Xiao Yan patted the fat kid's shoulder and imitated Chu Bei's tone. Gradually, the crowd of new students also recovered from their shock. Damn! He directly became a 9 stars warrior. That's F*King amazing. This is equivalent to going from 9 duan qi to 9 stars warrior. He didn't do anything, he only spent 800,000 gold coins. Now it seems like the fat kid made a killing. Compared to the other freshmen, the 2 freshmen who bought the boxes with the fat kid were full of regret. Brother, do you have any more of these boxes? Yes, do you have any more? I also want 1, no, 10. After the first freshman reacted, more and more freshmen with backgrounds took out gold coins from their storage rings and stared at Xiao Yan with burning eyes. "Everyone, there are only 10 today. Come back tomorrow, it's still the same place." Xiao Yan held Xiao Suner's hand and stepped back. At the same time, he waved at the crowd. When all 10 boxes were sold, the proxy ring in Xiao Yan's hand released a stream of information. The proxy ring gave him 2 choices. One was to obtain a grade 3 treasure box, and the other was to exchange it for a cultivation reward. Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment before choosing the latter. He already knew the probability of opening a treasure box, so he might as well directly change it to the actual probability. Just as Xiao Yan made his decision, he suddenly felt a warm current flowing into his body. In just a short moment, he sensed that his cultivation had already reached the peak of the first star of the dosher class. On the other side, acting as Xiao Yan, sold for 1 million gold coins. The system has obtained 10,000 willpower. The host has obtained 5,000 willpower. In the All-Heaven shop, Chu Bei was enjoying the delicious food cooked by the little doctor and Qing Lin when the system's voice suddenly rang out in his knowledge sea. "Good lad, you didn't disappoint me." Chu Bei was stunned at first, then a satisfied smile appeared on his face. 5 days had passed since the end of the auction. It was also the 3rd day since Xiao Yan arrived at Canaan College. The current Xiao Yan had already become a popular figure among this batch of new students. Other than his strength as a dosher, it was also because of the mysterious box that could open treasures. On the first day, 9 pills were opened from the 10 boxes. On the second day, a grade 3 monster core and a high mystic level skill manual were opened from the 10 boxes. Today, a treasure armor that could defend against the attacks of a 5-star dojo was opened from the 10 boxes. "Brother Xiao, you must come on time tomorrow." In the freshman square, a group of new students reluctantly sent off Xiao Yan. Not far away, a few mentors gathered together, looking at Xiao Yan's back with different expressions. "This little guy has already become a part of our college's scenery," one of the mentors said. "How many boxes did the mysterious merchant give him?" Another mentor looked at Luo Tian and Roland. "Who knows?" Luo Tian smiled. "I think the dean will definitely like this little guy." 7 days had passed since the auction. Side mission activated. Host has completed the transaction of the Fallen Heart Flame. In the course of the mission, the system has determined that the host can use 1 level 8 product from the store. Due to the distance, the host can use the system's fixed-point transmission array for free to go to Canaan College. Mission transaction completed. 1. Received an additional 150,000 willpower for the day. 2. Awarded 1 chance to use a level 8 product. Inside the celestial shop, Chu Bei was enjoying Qing Lin's massage when the system's voice suddenly sounded. "Another mysterious flame?" Chu Bei murmured. "Boss, what's wrong?" Qing Lin's voice was weak. "Tomorrow I have to go on a long trip." The corner of Chu Bei's mouth rose. He didn't expect that after Xiao Yan's group left for a few days, he would also have to set foot on Canaan College's land. "How long will you be gone?" Qing Lin asked. 1 or 2 days if I'm fast, 1 month if I'm slow," Chu Bei replied. The next day, Chu Bei stepped onto the fixed-point transmission array. In the middle of the Black Corner region, in the sky above Canaan City, a figure walked out of the void. Chu Bei glanced around and finally fixed his gaze on a mountain peak that stood to the north of the center of the city. The mountain peak was surrounded by celestial fog. Buildings were built along the mountain and were close to each other. Some were at the foot of the mountain, some were at the mountainside, and some were at the top of the mountain. Looking from afar, behind the main mountain peak, there were countless mountain peaks that spread out into the distance. "It's really imposing." Chu Bei flew to the top of the main mountain peak and gave an evaluation. Canaan College was much bigger than he had imagined. Especially the 4 words, Canaan College, above the simple and unadorned gate. It was very dazzling. The green stone steps and red wall tiles were carved with the vicissitudes of time. The entire college gave off a solemn and sacred aura. To be precise, the main mountain peak in front of him was only the outer court of Canaan College. The inner court where the fallen heart flame was located was the core of Canaan College. Countless experts rose from the inner court, and then their light shone on the entire continent. For thousands of years, the peak experts who walked out of the inner court all had illustrious names on the continent, and their names shook the entire continent. Compared to the outer court, the inner court was especially secretive. Even among the outer court disciples, only a few people knew about it. Although Chu Bei wasn't sure of the exact location of the inner court, he knew that it was hidden in the mountains. After flying half a circle around the main mountain peak, Chu Bei directly found an unguarded mountainside and landed. Then, he walked along a small path. "Little brother, where is that Xiaoyan you were talking about?" On the way, Chu Bei heard the two youths talking about Xiaoyan and immediately went forward to ask. "At this time, that guy must be selling boxes in the Freshman Plaza." One of the youths sized up Chu Bei and replied. "Selling boxes?" Chu Bei smiled knowingly and asked the youths again. After knowing the location of the Freshman Plaza, he increased his speed. Soon, Chu Bei arrived at the Freshman Plaza. On the plaza, hundreds of freshmen were gathered around a table. Each of them stared at the 10 square boxes on the table with blazing eyes. Behind the table was Xiaoyan with a complacent face. Chapter 64. Same old rules, 100,000 gold coins for a lucky draw. Xiaoyan greeted the freshman enthusiastically. At the same time, he took out a large barrel filled with folded papers. The freshman took out a piece of paper from the barrel one after another. "Ha ha, I got it! It's finally my turn! Bad luck, I can only wait until tomorrow." Excited cheers were mixed with sighs. The 10 people who won the lottery immediately took out 100,000 gold coins and chose the square boxes on the table. Bang, bang, bang. After a series of explosions, what followed were screams and all kinds of envious and jealous noises. Out of 10 square boxes, 9 were. "Thank you for your patronage." The only person who opened a treasure naturally became the focus of everyone. "Brother Xiao, don't forget to come tomorrow." After the treasure boxes were sold, the freshmen dispersed one after another. At this time, Xiaoyan also noticed Chu Bei, who was watching nearby. "Boss Chu, why are you here?" Xiaoyan was stunned at first, then became excited and quickly pulled Xiao Suner forward. "Your business is good." Looking at the radiant Xiaoyan, Chu Bei said with a smile. "It's all thanks to you." Xiaoyan pointed at the freshman who left. "The goods are good, rush to buy them. Keep up the good work." Chu Bei patted Xiaoyan's shoulder with satisfaction. "Boss Chu, you must have another purpose for coming to Jialan Academy, and not just to see me, right?" Xiaoyan asked. "I don't wake up early if there's no profit. I'm a businessman, of course I'm here to do business." Chu Bei stopped and didn't say much. Dang! At this time, a loud bell rang. On the freshman square, the freshmen who were having a long conversation all moved at the same time when they heard the bell and rushed to the east. "Big brother Xiaoyan, the inner court qualifiers have begun. Are we still going to watch today?" Xiao Suner looked at Xiaoyan and asked. "Boss Chu, do you want to join in the fun? Today is the last round of the qualifiers." Xiaoyan glanced at Chu Bei. "Interesting." Chu Bei straightened his clothes. "Let's go and take a look." Very quickly, Chu Bei followed Xiaoyan and arrived in front of another enormous open ground. The square was circular in shape, with stone stairs extending outwards like a wrestling ring. The inner courtyard preliminaries was a big event for Canaan College. Naturally, the spectator seats were packed with people. Chu Bei and Xiaoyan finally found a corner where they could see the stage after circling around the spectator stands for more than half a circle. At this moment, a man and a woman were continuously flashing and crossing each other on the stage. When the fists and palms of the two collided, a fierce do-chi fluctuation would burst forth. Cries of surprise would resound from the spectator stands. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover that most of the gazes in the spectators' stands were locked on the purple-robed woman on the stage. Her delicate body was flashing and graceful. Bang! On the stage, the two figures crossed each other dangerously. The purple-robed woman's body suddenly paused. Then, a golden light flourished between her palms. She fiercely pressed her palm onto her opponent's chest. A strong and fierce energy exploded and shook the latter until he flew out of the stage. "Thank you for letting me win!" After the purple-robed woman stabilized her body, she cupped her hands toward the man outside the stage. "Junior Hujia, I didn't expect you to be so strong." The defeated man brushed off the dust on his body and looked at the purple-robed woman on the stage. He let out a bitter laugh. "Hujia wins this round." Hearing the cry from the referee stand, the purple-robed woman turned around and rushed down from the stage. "Boss Chu, do you know that Canaan College is actually divided into the inner and outer academies? We are currently in the outer academy. If you want to enter the inner academy to train, you must enter the top 50 of the qualifying competition. To put it bluntly, the outer academy of Canaan College is merely a place to test the new students. Its true core is within the inner academy." After saying this, Xiaoyan pointed at the purple-robed woman who had returned to her seat and said, "The person who just won is known as the Witch of the Outer Academy. She is the granddaughter of the vice-headmaster. You also want to enter the inner academy?" Chu Bei looked at Xiaoyan. "Of course. It is said that the training resources of the inner academy and the outer academy are not on the same level. The difference is huge." Xiaoyan's gaze carried a yearning. "The finals have yet to begin. You can sign up and participate." Chu Bei pointed at the stage. "Boss Chu, you really know how to joke. Let's not talk about the fact that I am just a new student who has registered for a few days. Just based on my strength, I am far from having the qualifications to fight." Xiaoyan thought that Chu Bei was making fun of him. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "My current cultivation level is 2 stars do sure. Among the new students, perhaps no one can match me. However, if I were to be placed in the inner academy qualifying competition, I would simply be crushed. According to my observations over the past few days, without the strength of an 8-star dosher, it is impossible to break into the top 50. The impossible that you speak of is under the circumstance that I am not here." Chu Bei smiled meaningfully. Xiaoyan was at a loss for a moment. After which, he seemed to understand Chu Bei's meaning. However, in the end, he still spread his hands awkwardly. "Boss Chu, my financial resources are completely unable to keep up. Xiaoyan Gage, I still have some money here." At this moment, Xiao Suner interrupted. "Suner, you can also ask Boss Chu to spin the table," Xiaoyan said. Xiao Suner shook her head. A golden flame flashed in her eyes. "Xiaoyan Gage, I have my own training method. Trust me, I will catch up very quickly." After saying this, Xiao Suner took off the storage ring on her hand and handed it to Xiaoyan. "Take the money inside first. Suner can't wait to make Xiaoyan Gage stronger." Hearing Xiao Suner's words, Xiaoyan hesitated for a moment before taking the storage ring. From Yao Lao's words, he had some understanding of Xiao Suner's background. Thus, he understood the meaning behind her words. "Boss Chu, let's begin." Xiaoyan brought Chu Bei to a secluded place with an expectant look on his face. "You currently have 2 stars as a combat master. To increase your cultivation, you will need a combat master pill. It is a level 3 commodity and costs 100,000 yuan per spin." Chu Bei's lips parted slightly as he waved his sleeve. The void trembled and rippled. A golden wheel emerged from the ripples, emitting a blinding light. At the center of the top, the words, "Level 3 Wheel of Fortune," were particularly eye-catching. "Let's start with 5 sets." Xiaoyan took out 5 million yuan from the storage ring. "The system has received 50,000 willpower. The host has received 25,000 willpower." The silver needle spun. A few seconds later, 50 square boxes were arranged in an orderly manner in front of Xiaoyan. Boom! There was a uniform explosion. 50 boxes exploded at the same time. 36. Thank you for your patronage. For level 2 demon cores, for herbs, and 6 light blue spiral-shaped pills. 6. Xiaoyan glanced at the treasures and was overjoyed. As a proxy, your luck will be increased. Chu Bei patted Xiaoyan's shoulder again. Chapter 65. Looking at the 6 dosher Dan floating in the air, Xiaoyan didn't hesitate. He grabbed them and threw them all into his mouth. In a split second, Xiaoyan's face turned red and the air around him became restless. Xiaoyan slowly closed his eyes and focused his mind. He began to adjust his dou qi. 8-star dosher, success! After a few seconds, Xiaoyan opened his eyes and let out a long breath. Do you still want to continue? Chu Bei asked. Boss Chu, although 8-star dosher Dan is enough to squeeze into the top 50. But since I'm already participating, why don't I fight for the championship and give you some face? After saying that, Xiaoyan took out another 2 million gold coins. Out of the 20 boxes, there were 2 dosher Dan. However, because Xiaoyan was already an 8-star dosher Dan, he only needed one to break through to 9 stars. If you want to enter the dosher Dan, you need a Qi consolidating pill. It's the same as the dosher Dan, a level 4 product. Chu Bei snapped his fingers and the level 3 wheel disappeared. It was replaced by a level 4 wheel. One spin costs 250,000 gold coins. Xiaoyan Gij, there's still 15 million gold coins in your card. Use it all. Xiao Sunner bit her lips. Before I didn't have anywhere to spend money. I never thought that there would be a day where I didn't have enough money. Next time, I'll definitely get more money. Xiaoyan looked at Xiao Sunner and nodded. The system received 150,000 willpower. The host received 75,000 willpower. 40 square boxes, 30 thank you for your patronage, 5 level 4 magic nuclei, 1 green pill, 3 red pills, and a black halo. Green Qi consolidating pill, red dosher Dan. Without waiting for Xiaoyan to ask, Chu Bei already spoke. After receiving the answer, Xiaoyan took the Qi consolidating pill. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, Xiaoyan noticed that the liquid in his abdomen began to solidify until it turned into a thumb-sized green rhombus-shaped crystal. Dosher Dan, the symbol of a dosher Dan. Feeling the increase in strength in his body, Xiaoyan subconsciously clenched his fist. Suddenly, a dense green light covered his fist. Bang! He threw out a punch, and a powerful force slammed into an ancient tree. Looking at the dou qi cloak on the surface of Xiaoyan's body, it had completely taken shape and turned into a real armor. A moment later, Xiaoyan took another 3 dosher pills and swallowed them. Xiaoyan's aura rose once again, and the dou qi in his body became even more vigorous. 4 stars dosher Dan, success. Boss, this is... Xiaoyan's gaze first swept over the rank 4 monster core. Without pausing, his gaze paused on the cluster of black-colored light. This is the foundation for you to win the championship tomorrow. The corner of Chu Bei's mouth carried a smile. As he spoke, he waved his hand and the black glow entered between Xiaoyan's eyebrows. Damn! Absorption technique! When Xiaoyan finished sorting out the sudden influx of information in his mind, he couldn't help but shout out loud. Absorption technique was a peerless technique created by number 1 in the world. The primordial heart sutra was to steal other people's energy and absorb it into one's own meridians. However, after some slight modifications by the system, there were some deviations. Just like when he practiced the extreme blade storm, this cluster of light may have only entered Xiaoyan's sea of consciousness for a few seconds, but to him, it was as if he had practiced it for many years. He had already grasped every detail and every movement. 3 hours later. With the sound of the bell, the inner courtyard qualifiers ended. The 50 people who would enter the inner courtyard were successfully selected. The next day. This was destined to be the busiest day of the year in Canaan College. On Canaan Square, every corner was filled with people, including almost all the outer courtyard disciples. It's finally the finals. Today, we can feast our eyes. Who do you think will be the champion? That's hard to say. After all, in the previous qualifiers, Shui Feng, Nan Gongcheng, and Shi Tian didn't show their true strength. Wu Hao, Hu Jia, and Bai Shan are also very fierce. Although they are 2 batches later than Shi Tian and the others, their strength doesn't seem to be too different. Look! They're here! Just as the outer courtyard disciples on the spectator stand were discussing intensely, dozens of people walked out of the long passageway that connected to the fighting stage. Other than the 50 disciples participating in the finals, there were also a group of teachers and higher-ups from the college. Keep quiet! At this moment, a vigorous voice suddenly sounded in the square like thunder. The person who spoke was Canaan College's vice dean, Hu Gan. Just as Hu Gan's voice fell, the originally noisy square quieted down. After 7 days of the qualifiers, the inner courtyard qualifiers have successfully selected the 50 disciples who would enter the inner courtyard. Hu Gan stood in the first row of the spectator stand and swept his gaze across the surroundings. Let us congratulate them first. Clap, clap, clap! Continuous applause sounded. Although these 50 disciples all have the qualifications to enter the inner courtyard to cultivate, the inner courtyard also has a clear division of ranks. If you want to obtain better cultivation conditions in the inner courtyard, then the ranking in the finals is very important. Every increase in rank means that you can obtain better and better cultivation conditions. Speaking up to this point, Hu Gan looked at the 50 disciples who had all ascended the fighting stage. In the previous year's qualifiers, it was a round of competition. But this year, the format will be changed. Change the format? Hearing Hu Gan's words, the surrounding disciples on the spectator stand were confused. They all looked at each other, not understanding what he meant. This new format is the mixed battle elimination competition. All 50 disciples will ascend the fighting stage. Whoever can last the longest on the fighting stage will have a higher ranking. Hu Gan stroked his beard and continued. On the fighting stage, there are no restrictions. You can use any method, even group up. You only have one goal, and that is to try your best not to be kicked out of the fighting stage. Compared to the previous years, this year's format sounds even more interesting. But it seems to be a little unfair. For example, that Hu Jia is the outer dean's granddaughter. She usually makes friends with a lot of people. If they are allowed to group up, wouldn't she have an advantage? Wu Hao of the enforcement team also has an advantage. From the looks of it, the first to be eliminated is very likely to be those arrogant and solitary fellows. After Hu Gan explained the rules of the finals, a clamor once again arose in the plaza. The expressions of anticipation on the faces of the disciples became even more intense. Since we all know the rules, then let the finals begin. Hu Gan struck the large bell, and the sound of the bell drifted over the entire plaza. Wait! However, just as Hu Gan's voice fell, a discordant voice sounded from the northwest corner of the spectator stand. Hua! The gazes of everyone in the plaza converged. I also want to join the finals! Under everyone's gazes, a 15 to 16-year-old youth stood up from his chair and walked to the front row at a moderate pace. At the same time, a voice that shocked everyone came out of his mouth. Chapter 66. Who is that guy? Why haven't I seen him before? Is there something wrong with his brain? Appearing at this time. He even said that he wanted to participate in the finals. Ha, wanting to enter the finals without passing the preliminaries. I'm afraid that he is dreaming. Looking so unfamiliar, he should be a new student who has just reported. Among this batch of new students, he can be considered the most famous. Other than his strength being far ahead of the other new students, he also possesses a mysterious treasure box. Quickly look! It's Brother Xiao! F***CK, what is he trying to do? On the plaza, countless gazes focused on Xiao Yan. The expressions of the old students who had never seen Xiaoyan were as though they were looking at an idiot. The group of new students, on the other hand, were confused yet excited. On the rostrum, the two elders glanced at Xiaoyan before simultaneously looking at the vice-headmaster, Hu Gan. Hu Gan looked at Luo Tian beside him. "Isn't this the monster that you brought back from Wutan City? Although he has the highest cultivation among this batch of new students, according to my understanding, he is only a one-star dosher. Even if he is compared to the weakest person participating in the finals, there is still a huge gap. I also don't understand. After interacting with him for the past few days, he is not an arrogant person." After replying to Vice-Headmaster Hu Gan, Luo Tian looked at Xiaoyan. Just as he was about to open his mouth to say something, he seemed to have discovered something and his expression suddenly became startled. "Boss Chu!" The next moment, Luo Tian exclaimed. "Teacher Luo Tian, we meet again." Chu Bei strolled to Xiaoyan's side and waved his hand at Luo Tian, greeting him. "Who is this person? He should be with the guy who is participating in the finals." However, looking at teacher Luo Tian's expression, it seems that he is very excited because of his appearance. On the plaza, the gazes of the academy disciples turned to Chu Bei. "He is the mysterious merchant that you met during your trip to Wutan City?" Hearing Luo Tian's exclamation, Hu Gan's expression also changed. Luo Tian nodded and said, "The 9-chain Great Formation was bought from him." After obtaining Luo Tian's affirmation, Hu Gan re-examined Chu Bei. After all, he had heard from Luo Tian that this merchant was a high-class dozong. "Dean, I also want to enter the inner yard to cultivate. I wonder if I can also participate in the finals?" Xiaoyan bowed towards Hu Gan with a respectful expression. "Nonsense!" Without waiting for Hu Gan to speak, Luo Tian took the initiative to rebuke. "There's no harm in giving him a chance," Chu Bei said in a calm voice. Hearing this, Luo Tian was startled, and then he hurriedly said, "Boss Chu, those who can enter the finals are the most outstanding disciples of the outer court, and the weakest among them is at least 8 stars. Xiaoyan is only 1 star, and this year's format is a free-for-all. If he goes up, I'm afraid he will get injured. If that's the case, you can find someone to test if he's qualified." Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled. "Xuebeng, know your limits when you attack. Don't hurt him." Just as Luo Tian was hesitating, Vice Dean Hu Gan opened his mouth and said, After receiving the order, a man wearing white clothes immediately walked from the spectator area to Xiaoyan. "Little Junior, there's always someone better than you. Don't you understand that?" The man called Xuebeng looked at Xiaoyan with ridicule. "Today, let Senior teach you a lesson. Then Junior will thank you in advance. However, Senior, don't hurt yourself," Xiaoyan replied. "Arrogant." Xuebeng coldly snorted and then looked at Hu Gan. "Dean, can I make my move now?" Seeing Hu Gan nod his head, Xuebeng took a step forward and suddenly clenched his right fist. Accompanied by a low muffled sound, an extremely oppressive sound of rushing wind whizzed out. Xiaoyan's expression did not change as he slowly rolled up his sleeves. His opponent is Xuebeng, the guy who almost entered the finals. To be so calm in the face of a 7-star dosher, he really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Seeing Xiaoyan's calm and composed manner, the group of disciples spoke out one after another. They only had one phrase to describe Xiaoyan's current performance: "A newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger." If it wasn't for the dean's order, I would really want to teach you a lesson. Xuebeng frowned in disgust at Xiaoyan's indifference. As the cry fell, the dou qi in Xuebeng's body quickly surged to his right fist and his body charged forward. In almost the blink of an eye, Xuebeng had already clenched his fist and arrived in front of Xiaoyan. Sensing Xuebeng's aura, Luo Tian and Hu Gan's expressions involuntarily changed. They were already prepared to attack at any time if the situation was not right. However, as the main character, Xiaoyan was still extremely calm and composed. Under countless gazes that were filled with various emotions, Xue Bing's mighty punch was already less than 30 centimeters away from Xiao Yan. However, just as everyone thought that Xiao Yan would be forced back by this punch, Xue Bing's fist, which was already stuck to Xiao Yan's chest, suddenly stiffened, as if it had been imprisoned. Unknowingly, Xiao Yan had already extended his palm. It was this palm that had forcefully blocked Xue Bing's extraordinarily powerful right fist and its path forward. That guy actually received it. How is this possible? Xue Bing Shixiong must have gone easy on him. Witnessing this scene, the entire place was in an uproar. Shixiong, I am not as weak as you think. Please take out your full strength. Xiao Yan calmly looked at Xue Bing as the corner of his mouth lifted into a slight arc. Xue Bing seemed to still be immersed in shock. When he sensed the frightening dou-qi fluctuation that suddenly rose from Xiao Yan, his pupils suddenly shrunk and shock finally flashed across his face. At this time, Xiao Yan also turned his palm into a fist. The fist carried a swift and fierce energy as it smashed towards Xue Bing. Wherever the fist passed, the space would fluctuate. An ear-piercing sonic boom sounded like muffled thunder that did not stop. Feeling Xiao Yan's fierce attack that was like a thunderbolt, Xue Bing finally recovered from his absent-mindedness. He hurriedly retreated and quickly pulled apart the distance between him and Xiao Yan. It seems that I have underestimated you. Then let me see just how strong you are. Fighting intent rose in Xue Bing's eyes as he began to display his dou-qi. With a stomp of his foot, a kacha sound erupted from the hard floor. Numerous tiny cracks swiftly spread from the soles of his feet. In the next moment, Xue Bing emitted a low and deep roar. The dou-qi in his body was circulated to the limit at this moment. Faint red dou-qi gushed out from his body and finally formed a red dou-qi cloak on the surface of his body. Subsequently, Xue Bing's figure flashed as his dou-qi left behind over 10 afterimages. Red light surged violently as the afterimages merged. Xue Bing punched out once again. However, the might of this punch was tens of times stronger than before. Xue Bing Shixiong actually used his full strength. That guy seems to be stronger than we imagine. Everyone exclaimed in astonishment as they looked at the red light that shot explosively towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's expression still did not change when facing Xue Bing's punch. A layer of armor slowly appeared on the surface of his body. Subsequently, he also blasted out a punch. Bang! The two fists collided. An enormous sound exploded from the point of collision. Chapter 67. On the battlefield, the hard stone slab under their feet was directly shattered into powder with a loud bang. Cracks spread out continuously like a spider web. Immediately after, a figure shot out like a cannonball and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His body fell to the ground and slid a few meters on the floor before coming to a stop. In the spectator stands, countless gazes gathered. When they confirmed the person who had lost, their faces turned gray. Xue Bing lost. This result was too sudden and unexpected, causing them to be caught off guard. Luo Tian, what is going on? Didn't you say that he was only a one-star dosher? The vice principal sucked in a breath of cold air and was at a loss. At this moment, he did not have the calmness he had when he was in charge of the outer court. Instead, he was like a person who had been struck by lightning. When I brought him back to the academy, he was indeed only a one-star dosher. Instructor Ruo Ling can testify for me. As for the situation before us, I have no way of knowing. Luo Tian was flabbergasted. His brain had already lost the ability to think. He stood there like a piece of wood and stared blankly at the victorious Xiao Yan. Dou-qi armor! He is a dosher! No wonder Xue Bing lost! Is he really a new student? Finally, an uproar sounded from the crowded spectator stands. The gazes of the academy's disciples, who had looked at Xiao Yan with disdain earlier, clearly contained an additional unknown meaning when they looked at him. A dosher, forget about among the new students. Even when placed in the entire Jiannan Outer Academy, he would be considered an outstanding person. Of course, he was qualified to participate in the finals of the inner court. Brother Xiao won! Brother Xiao is actually a didosher! Brother Xiao is mighty! As for the new students present, they were already shouting crazily. They were completely fanboys. On the fighting stage, the 50 students who had entered the finals looked at each other. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The strength that Xiao Yan had displayed similarly caused them to be greatly shocked. Instructor Luo Tian, do you think Xiao Yan can join the finals now? Chu Bei asked Luo Tian with a smile. At this time, Luo Tian seemed to have thought of something. He stared at Chu Bei in disbelief and said tentatively, Boss Chu, you must have improved Xiao Yan's cultivation. That's not important. Chu Bei shrugged. I'm afraid you're the only one who can do it. Luo Tian let out a long sigh of relief. The other party didn't refute his question, which undoubtedly confirmed his theory. After he finished speaking, Luo Tian turned around to look at Vice Dean Hugon and the two elders. Hugon and the two elders exchanged glances and nodded at the same time. Xiao Yan, even though you've just reported to the academy, but based on the strength you revealed earlier, we've unanimously agreed to allow you to enter the inner court and participate in the finals of the inner court selection competition this time. After announcing the results, Hugon once again looked at Chu Bei, hesitating to speak. Thank you, Dean. Xiao Yan first cupped his hands towards Hugon, then bowed towards Chu Bei. Finally, he leaped up onto the fighting stage. Brother Xiao, do your best. The group of new students stood up from their seats and cheered for Xiao Yan. Little guys, I don't need to repeat the rules of the competition, right? Do you all understand? Hugon's gaze swept across the 51 figures on the fighting stage. Understood. Orderly shouts sounded from the fighting stage. Since that's the case, then I announce the start of the finals. Boom! As Hugon's shout fell, the originally quiet fighting stage instantly exploded with dozens of different colored douqi, dazzling everyone's eyes. Immediately after, the figures on the stage flashed, one by one retreating towards the edge of the fighting stage. Since this was a big chaotic battle, everyone on the stage was an enemy except for themselves. Because of this, they were all afraid of being in the middle of the battlefield and being attacked by a group, or being attacked from behind and being blasted out of the fighting stage. Looking once again at the spectators' stand, the moment Hugon announced the start of the finals, excited screams and wild shouts resounded through the clouds. The group of spectating disciples almost broke their throats as they cheered for the contestants that they liked. This year's chaotic battle mode is indeed more inciting than the previous year's round and round battles. Hugon's face was filled with pride, as if he was satisfied with his own decision. Rumble. As the competition began, those contestants who were unable to retreat to the edge of the fighting stage at the beginning could only be forced to enter the chaotic battle first. Perhaps it was because they were afraid that the people who had already occupied the edge would suddenly attack, but even if they exchanged blows with others, they would only make contact and retreat. At the same time, their gazes were vigilantly looking at their surroundings. Since they were more or less familiar with each other, those who were weaker and were in the middle of the fighting stage gradually became the primary targets of the other people's attacks. Very quickly, those who were weaker began to be eliminated. Gradually, some people learned from experience. On the battlefield, those who were usually on good terms with each other began to get closer to each other and form groups. As more and more people found their companions, the chaos in the arena began to turn for the better. The situation in the arena also began to change. One by one, small groups began to work together and attack those who were left alone. This kind of chaotic battle is completely unfair to Brother Xiao. That's right. Those who are on good terms with each other have begun to form groups while Brother Xiao is alone. The situation is not good. If only we had Brother Zhao's strength. Then we would be able to go on stage and help him. On the spectators' platform, a group of new students felt injustice for Xiao Yan. As the competition continued, a group of 4 had their eyes on Xiao Yan. Unfortunately, none of the four had stepped into the Didosher class and were unable to pose any threat to Xiaoyan. In the end, the four of them were all blasted out of the fighting stage by Xiaoyan. With the previous example, the other groups who had originally wanted to attack Xiaoyan one by one gave up on the idea. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Xiaoyan directly unleashed a 4-star Didosher Do-Chi ripple, intimidating everyone in the arena. Other than Xiaoyan, there were 6 other strong auras that rushed out of the fighting stage. Each of them occupied a position. Looking over, these 6 people were Shui Feng, Nan Gongchong, Shi Tian, Wu Hao, Hu Jia, and Bai Shan, who were favored to win the championship. What caused people to be stunned was that these 6 people actually did not form a group. They even took the initiative to attack the competitors who had formed groups. This was especially true for Shui Feng, Nan Gongchong, and Shi Tian. They were like ferocious tigers that had left the mountain. No matter which group they met, they would use their tyrannical methods to blast them out of the arena. "You are Xiaoyan, right? I saw your fight just now. It is really rare for you to be able to become a Didosher at your age." Wu Hao appeared in front of Xiaoyan in a flash. "Let me have a taste of your skills. Then, please enlighten me." Xiaoyan's expression became serious. This Wu Hao from the law enforcement squadron in front of him was above him in terms of cultivation. He had already reached the peak of 5 stars. Chapter 68. Quickly look! Wu Hao has found that new student. This new student has already entered the Didosher class at such a young age. He can be said to be truly talented. Unfortunately, he has been targeted by Wu Hao. He can be considered unlucky. That's right. Wu Hao is different from Shui Bang. He has been training in the Black Corner region all year round. At least 100 Didosher have died in his hands. His cultivation has also reached the peak of 5 stars. I just don't know how long this new student can last in Wu Hao's hands. On the viewing platform, the group of disciples quickly noticed Wu Hao's movements. When they realized that his prey was Xiaoyan, their expressions revealed pity for Xiaoyan. Under countless gazes, Wu Hao's figure moved like a ghost. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Xiaoyan. Sensing the frightening force that was coming toward him, Xiaoyan did not hesitate. After locking on to Wu Hao's position, he immediately unleashed an all-out attack. Bang! A low muffled sound echoed. The two figures separated when they came into contact. "It seems that I have underestimated you." Wu Hao looked at Xiaoyan approvingly. His speed began to increase. Xiaoyan's expression was serious. His speed also increased accordingly. Bang, bang, bang. The two figures quickly crossed each other. In just a few breaths' time, Xiaoyan and Wu Hao had exchanged more than 10 blows. He can actually contend with Wu Hao. He has already become so strong. Looking at his Do-Chi ripple, he is at least a 4-star Didosher. The group of disciples who were watching the battle had faces of disbelief. At this moment, the situation in the other battlefields on the fighting platform had also suddenly changed. Shui Feng, Ne Gongchong, Shi Tian, Hu Jia, and Bai Shan had actually cooperated with a tacit understanding and launched a destructive attack on those tyrannical groups. Damn it! Amidst the low roars of unwillingness, the number of people on the fighting platform decreased. When the last group was expelled, only Hu Jia, Bai Shan, and the other 2 people, Xiaoyan and Wu Hao, who were still fighting, were left on the fighting platform. There were a total of 7 people. "Those fellows who were there to make up the numbers have finally all been chased away," Bai Shan said as he straightened his clothes. "After this, it will be our battle. I will not show any mercy to you." Hu Jia rolled her eyes at Bai Shan. "What's the rush? Wu Hao is currently locked in battle with that new student." Bai Shan pointed at the battle between Xiaoyan and Wu Hao. "This new student called Xiaoyan has really given me a great shock. If Wu Hao doesn't bring out his trump card, I'm afraid we won't be able to take him down in a short time." It wasn't just Hu Jia, Bai Shan, Shi Tian, and the others. The gazes of the two elders on the rostrum, Vice Dean Hugon, and everyone in the spectator seats were all focused on Wu Hao and Xiao Yan. At this moment, the battle between the two had reached its climax. Bang! There was another loud bang. The two figures retreated several steps at the same time. However, this time, Wu Hao didn't immediately launch another attack. Instead, he glanced at the battle stage where only the 7 of them remained. Wu Hao, can you do it or not? That's right. You can't even take down a new student. No matter what, you are still an influential figure in the law enforcement team. Your current performance has disappointed me. Shui Feng, Nagong Chung, and Shi Tian let out mocking laughter one after another. Wu Hao ignored Shi Tian and the other two's ridicule. He only snorted coldly, and his gaze once again returned to Xiao Yan's body. Perhaps your future achievements will be above mine. However, right now, it will end here. As the low and deep voice fell, Wu Hao flipped his right hand and a completely silver-white long spear flashed out from his storage ring. The long spear trembled. Silver-colored dough qi that flickered with lightning covered the body of the spear like numerous small snakes. Accompanied by a stern shout, Wu Hao held the handle of the spear. At the same time as he swept forward, the tip of the spear quickly trembled and brought about several wisps of silver-colored light. Clank, however, just as the silver-colored light was about to pierce through Xiao Yan, a long saber appeared in the latter's hand and he met the attack head-on. Although the long spear was blocked, Wu Hao's expression did not change in the slightest. His arm trembled once again, and a lightning-like silver-colored dough qi violently surged out along the body of the spear. Its target was Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan did not dodge or evade. Just as the silver-colored dough qi was only 30 centimeters away from his forehead, the boundless dough qi within his body condensed into an energy membrane diagonally above his head. Another muffled sound resounded. Layers of ripples appeared on the energy membrane due to the bombardment. However, Xiao Yan's body was still unscathed. Wu Hao's expression finally became gloomy after his attack was neutralized once again. In the next moment, he held the handle of the spear with both hands and then violently rotated it. Suddenly, the silver-colored long spear turned into a windmill. The berserk energy fluctuation even lifted the surface of the fighting stage. Its power was terrifying. Looking at Wu Hao's body, the silver-colored light on the surface of his body flourished. From afar, it looked like a silver-colored ball of light. I didn't expect that I would be forced to use this move. Regardless of whether it was Hu Jia, Bai Shan, or Shui Feng, Nandong Chong, or Shi Tian who had previously ridiculed Wu Hao, when they saw the silver light on the surface of Wu Hao's body flourish, all of their expressions changed. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Feeling the berserk thunderbolt-like energy condensed on the long spear in Wu Hao's hand, Xiao Yan's expression became somewhat grave. At the same time, he held the handle of the saber with both hands and began to wave it in an orderly manner. Gradually, the silver-colored long spear that had turned into a windmill in Wu Hao's hand became still again. However, at this moment, the long spear had completely transformed into a silver-colored thunderbolt spear. The handle, the body, and the tip of the spear were all flashing with lightning, accompanied by a frightening sound of thunder. Thunderstorm. Wu Hao's gaze was firmly fixed on Xiao Yan. As soon as he shouted, the spear in his hand flashed. After a short moment, the long spear pierced toward Xiao Yan. Under countless shocked gazes, a thick silver-colored electric arc shot out from the tip of the spear. Wherever the electric arc passed, the calm empty space appeared to be torn apart, forming a gully. Its speed was also extremely fast as it flashed past. Seeing such a frightening attack, the sound of cold air being sucked in sounded from the viewing platform. Each of them subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This kind of attack, forget about a 4-star Dedosher, even a 7-star or 8-star Dedosher would be seriously injured if struck by it. As the spear pierced out, an additional denseness appeared on Wu Hao's face. This thunderstorm was a high Xian-class Do technique. In terms of destructive power, it could even be compared to an ordinary D-class initial stage Do technique. It was also his strongest attacking method. When he was training in the Black Corner region, he had relied on this move to make a name for himself. On the rostrum, the deputy headmaster Hugon was ready to make a move. He seemed to want to make a move. However, when he saw Chu Bei's carefree manner not far away, he descended into hesitation. Extreme Blade Storm. However, just as the spear that carried a frightening force was about to pierce Xiao Yan, the long saber that Xiao Yan was holding with both hands was swung out. At the same time, a cry also sounded from his mouth. At this moment, the gazes of the people who had been focused on Xiao Yan actually formed a kind of absent-minded feeling. In that instant, Xiao Yan's figure disappeared. When they once again saw Xiao Yan, the other party had already swung his saber and hacked at Wu Hao's silver-colored thunderbolt spear. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.